Hey, you guys. So, we've got some stuff to talk about that may or may not be surprising. It may not shock anybody. But CNN does have some news about a federal grand jury that plans to hear from victims or alleged accusers of Sean Diddy Combs. So that's one new development. We've been speculating that, hey, something's got to give, right? Eventually, some type of criminal action has to start. Well, the federal grand jury is apparently going to hear from accusers soon. They're being prepped. We're going to look into that. We're also going to hear about some new information on what the feds gathered during their raid on Diddy's home. And then we're going to look at a feature, an exclusive from Rolling Stone, that it's Cheyenne Roundtree and Nancy Dillon put together. They say they looked at Diddy's history. They investigated for 6 months. And we're going to look at what's reported and see if it's anything new. And we're going to discuss why Rolling Stone took so long to put this type of thing together, especially when, they've had interviews in the past with people like Usher who've made certain hints about certain behaviors and actions that were going on in Diddy's personal residence. But let's get into it. We are going to start off. YouTube gives me 10 free gifts every month. I have 5 left and the month is almost over. So let me drop those gifts to you guys. So congrats if you get one. And then let's get right into the CNN exclusive on what's coming out with this federal investigation. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys. And what are we going to find out? Let me get my handy dandy headphones on.
Escalation since. So this is obviously the biggest escalation since those March raids on Diddy's homes in Los Angeles and Miami. We are now hearing that federal investigators are preparing to possibly bring witnesses in front of a federal grand jury in New York City. What we have heard is that possible witnesses have been notified that they could be called to testify. Now, sources do caution that investigators are still in the process of gathering information. In fact, they are still calling in new witnesses, and they have called in some witnesses multiple times. We also hear that the majority of the accusers.
Now that they've got this apology video on the screen, guys, think about how this came about, right? He does this apology video. Why? Because this elevator video drops. And then after months and months of Diddy saying, oh, these are just money chasers, these are false allegations, all these different things that completely denounced what people were coming forward and accusing, and some of them he didn't even respond to at all. But after denying Cassie Ventura's allegations, like across the board, just flat out denied them, these are false, she's looking for money, we tried to work this out privately. This video of the elevator assault, or the hallway leading up to the elevator, that video's dropped by who? CNN. There's been speculation on where it came from. We're going to get some clarification that CNN still doesn't exactly know. But then right after that comes out, 2 days later, we get this apology video from Diddy. But what's the problem with this? There's a criminal action underway, which we've all been kind of waiting. We wanted to hear the news, and we've been wondering, why hasn't any criminal action taken place? These things can move kind of slow. But now he does this apology video. And even though he's kind of wishy-washy, he said, I'm only going to ask God for forgiveness. Well, you showing that you did horrible things, you were in a dark place, you were in rock bottom, that's not going to look good for you as this criminal action develops, because I'm sure it's going to be used against him. But let's continue.
To have filed these civil lawsuits against Sean Diddy Combs have been brought in for questioning, and again, some of them being called in numerous times. We hear that many are cooperating and even handing over evidence that they feel could be relevant into this federal probe. Now, a spokesperson for Homeland Security did not respond to our request for comment about the presence of a grand jury, but they did confirm that this investigation is presently ongoing.
And Elizabeth, what are you learning about the evidence that investigators could be reviewing here?
Now, this is a little bit of interesting tea. It's pretty short, but just pay attention.
So, as I mentioned, those federal raids that were conducted on his homes back in March, obviously a lot of people wondering what was seized. Well, we are learning now that federal investigators are in possession of video footage that was taken inside of Combs's residence.
They are not talking about the elevator video footage. They are talking about video from cameras that are within Diddy's residence that were taking, it was recording. We're going to hear some allegations that people were being recorded without their consent, which has been widely speculated if you look anywhere online at any of the blogs and YouTubers that are deeply following the Diddy story as it develops. But there's one detail that goes right to what Cassie Ventura alleged in her lawsuit filed back in November.
We hear that these investigators have been contacting individuals that they have seen on this footage. One person, in addition to the accusers who have filed these civil suits, is a male sex worker. That is what
the freak-offs with the male sex workers. They have apparently video footage from a male sex worker who is claiming to have been victimized by Diddy. They have footage of him. The feds seized this footage during their raid of this individual, among others, within Diddy's residence. And again, this is coming from CNN, who had the elevator tape by somehow, some way, of Diddy chasing and then assaulting Cassie Ventura in 2016. So sometimes we hear these things according to a source familiar with the matter, and you have to weigh how credible that may be. But in terms of this Diddy and the federal raid and putting something up, putting a receipt forward, they've delivered recently. So I don't know. It sounds like what they're saying here could be pretty credible.
Source tells me, and that they have been brought in for questioning through these federal investigators. Now, when the raids first happened, we had a law enforcement source tell us at CNN that the investigation was largely based in sex trafficking, which is what HSI specializes in. Now we are hearing that that scope has been widened and that investigators are really looking into all of these claims put forth in these civil lawsuits. That would include not just sex trafficking, but also money laundering and illegal drugs. I have a source who tells me, quote, "This is much bigger than just these lawsuits."
So there you go. That's their video recording. They do go into a bit of greater detail. I have this in reader mode. The article basically reiterates everything that we just heard in the video, but there was a part where they specify, hey, look, we still don't know. It's unclear whether the video was seized during the raids or whether investigators obtained the video from individuals they have been questioning. So this is speaking about that surveillance video with Cassie in the hallway in the hotel trying to get away from Diddy as he chases her and starts pushing her and kicking her. So still don't know exactly where the source is, but it's also possible that if it was seized during the raids, the feds, Homeland Security, whatever may have you, don't want to be named as just handing over potential evidence to a massive news publication. So this could just be distancing, even though maybe they do know and they don't want to say and they're just saying it's unclear, or maybe it's really unclear. But that would be very interesting to me if it was turned over by an individual they've been questioning. Because who else had access, knowledge, awareness of this video and a copy of it to turn over? That would be interesting to find out. Now, the other thing, and I want to say hi to everyone in the chat first. So let's see. We have Erica. Yes, you are a member. Hey, Mr. Minutes. Hey, Barbara. And then Barbara's pointing out, yeah, we're getting to the Rolling Stone reporting their 6-month investigation into Diddy's backstory as a bad boy. It's basically the New York Post now. Biko, I think our Biko is saying we know why grand jury is coming forward now or why Rolling Stone is covering it now, but he lost his leverage. I agree. And then, hey, Blue Queen TV. Hey, Murph. And then I wanted to point out, so Arbiko also mentioned that possibly this male sex worker maybe is Jonathan Odie or Odie. So I'm not familiar with that specifically. So I'm just going to say could be. But let's look at this investigative journalism from the Rolling Stone. And to no one's surprise, it is written by Cheyenne Roundtree with the help of Nancy Dillon. And it's supposed to be this big exclusive feature. I've seen it all over Twitter, and we're actually going to look at some of the reactions from people on Twitter that, not gonna lie, can't even make it sound pretty, but they were eating Rolling Stone up in the comments for being so late on covering this. Let's switch the banner here. So they say for decades, Sean Diddy Combs was hip-hop's boisterous showman. Now, dozens of former friends, employees, and bad boy artists allege an abusive, menacing figure behind the facade. She took the stage at the BET Awards in June. Let me make this bigger because, you know, it's like text for ants. There we go. So Sean Diddy Combs was elated. Yeah, he bellowed, punctuating his words with triumphant jumps. You know, Rolling Stone always has to, like, write a novel with this reporting. Like, maybe that's why it takes them so long? Who knows? The adoring crowd, who gave him a sustained standing ovation, including his mother and children, longtime friends, and music industry peers. So, of course, they want to mention Kanye first, because that, like, sets the tone for it to be Boogeyman, right? Janelle Monáe, Babyface, and Lil Wayne. After 3 decades of relentless hustling that took him from hungry teenager intern to A&R executive, producer, label impresario, respected fashion designer, and household brand name, Diddy had seemingly reached the apotheosis of his career. He closed his eyes and repeatedly thanked God, which is kind of reminiscent of where he put his focus to in that apology video he just released a week and a half ago. He got down on one knee and praised his mother. He name-checked a laundry list of people who'd mentored and inspired him. Anything I do is through love, Combs proclaimed early in a 9-minute speech. That's what I evolved to be, and that's what I'm doing right now. But soon, Combs struck a more somber tone. I was in a dark place for a few years, he said. I gotta give a special thank you to the people that was really there for me. He listed his friends and advisors. Then, looking directly into the camera, he said, Cassie, for holding me down in dark times, love. He raised one hand to make an L sign, and held his gaze steadily, silently, for several seconds. Wait, so did he use, like, the L, like, loser sign to mean love? I gotta go watch that clip. Because it doesn't say he made, like, a heart sign. It says he made an L. And I always think of, like loser. But anyway, not important. So Combs and Cassie Ventura, a former singer for his iconic Bad Boy record label, had split 4 years earlier. But he had been openly pining for her ever since. He posted photos of her online and urged her to listen to Michael Jackson's The Lady in My Life. He publicly congratulated her on her first pregnancy with her husband. His comments at the award show were part of a pattern of behavior, one that had been tormenting Ventura for years. When she learned of her ex's latest remarks, sources say, Ventura was distressed. She was also resolute. Now, so far, we haven't gotten to anything that isn't known by the public, hasn't been discussed by other creators, other bloggers. It's just some story narrative. So my expectation would be, and I've skimmed this, but I haven't read it in detail. My expectation would be we're still going to get to some new type of information from this big investigation. Let's keep going. Almost 18 months later, in November 2023, Ventura sued Combs, claiming he held her in a violent form of sexual servitude throughout their relationship and R-worded her upon their final breakup in 2018. Again, this is not new information because it's all right in the lawsuit. She invoked Combs' BET speech in her filing. For Miss Ventura, the dark times were those she spent trapped by Mr. Combs in a cycle of abuse, violence, and sex trafficking. She said Combs' brutal beatings, one of them captured in harrowing hotel video footage, obtained by CNN, left her with bruises, burst lips, black eyes, and extensive trauma. For Grammy-winning songwriter Tiffany Red. Now, Tiffany Red has been doing interviews. She's been on Tisa Tells. She's been on, I think, 2 other channels, but I don't remember the name. But she's also spoken out on other outlets. Like Keisha with the T has put up some commentary from Tiffany Red. So this, again, I don't think we're going to get into any bombshell information from the hardworking investigative journalist over at Rolling Stone who took 6 months to start putting this out. But Tiffany Red, a friend of Ventura's, who worked closely with the singer during the height of the alleged abuse, Combs' words from the BET stage had been a stunt. It's like harassment, she explains. You're still fucking with her. Leave her alone. Leave her the fuck alone. In the 5 years after her breakup with Combs, Ventura remained silent. While he was posting about her pregnancy in 2019, she was negotiating in distress behind the scenes to escape her bad boy contract, Red says. Despite Ventura signing a 10-album deal in 2006, Bad Boy only released one studio album by her. Again, all things that we don't need to wait for Rolling Stone to go investigate and find out. We're all pretty much, if you watched any news coverage of the Cassie lawsuit, this is well known. Combs was allegedly trying to tie her separation agreement to a non-disparagement clause. It's not like we were negotiating with just her record label, Red says. We were negotiating with her abuser. Through her lawyer, Ventura declined to speak for this article. So Cassie, whose law firm has made statements to CNN, Cassie's made her own statement through Instagram. But through her lawyer, Ventura declined to speak to Rolling Stone. Combs did not respond to a request for comment on this allegation. At some point, Ventura checked herself into a rehabilitation center to deal with the physical and psychological repercussions of her time with Combs and found renewed purpose in being a mom. Her lawsuit says. This is all derived from the public filing. When she eventually gathered her strength and stepped forward, a flurry of other lawsuits followed. Again, things that have been covered, not just available publicly, but covered extensively by creators, bloggers, news outlets, online. 5 more women have since accused Combs of the R-word or violent essay dating as far back as 1990, 2 of whom claim that Combs secretly recorded their sexual encounters and showed the footage to others without their consent. Music producer Lil Rod Jones also sued, again, widely covered, alleging Combs groped his genitals and forced him to solicit sex workers and perform sex acts to the pleasure of Mr. Combs, right from the filing. Which, these filings, we've seen 2 come out in May, but Lil Rod, that goes back to what, end of January? That first came out? We're talking about a 6-month investigative journalism project from the Rolling Stone. And we're paragraphs deep. And we're only getting to things that, if you've tuned into my channel or any channel or opened a browser and looked at news about Diddy, you're probably familiar with this. Well, Combs would eventually take responsibility for the assault captured on, they're going to talk, that's the apology video. That's why, that apology video was a stupid move. It didn't help his PR. It's not going to get him Cassie back. And now he's got a criminal action that I'm sure this is going to be pulled out and used against him. Which I don't care, right? Good, use it. But a stupid move on his part. His lawyers are probably like, bro, why? He has denied all the other allegations against him. The day Ventura filed her complaint, he blasted it as a shakedown based on outrageous lies. Again, public statements. For the past 6 months, Mr. Combs has been subjected to Ms. Ventura's persistent demand of $30 million, under the threat of writing a damaging book about their relationship, which was unequivocally rejected as blatant blackmail, his lawyer, Ben Brafman, said. In response, Ventura's lawyer, Douglas Wigder, said, not to Rolling Stone, but he's made statements to other outlets, said Combs offered Ms. Ventura 8 figures to silence her and prevent the filing of this lawsuit. The parties came to an undisclosed settlement within 24 hours of Ventura's filing. When his 4th R-word accuser sued in December, Combs, 54, issued another passionate denial. Enough is enough. For the last couple of weeks, I have sat silently and watched people try to assassinate my character, destroy my reputation and my legacy. Sickening allegations have been made against me by individuals looking for a quick payday. Let me be absolutely clear. I did not do any of the awful things that have been alleged. I will fight for my name, my family, and for the truth. Again, all stuff. This was like on his Instagram, I think, right? I think that's where he posted this. So, not anything that's coming from an exclusive or investigative journalism. For many, the lurid allegations against Combs were jarring, in part because he had risen to such great heights as a bankable bon vivant who threw the best parties, or freak-offs, from New York City to the Hamptons to Hollywood. He's a pop culture stalwart who walked under a parasol held by his campy valet Farnsworth Bentley in Saint-Tropez and turned up at a Met Gala in a Swarovski crystal-encrusted tuxedo and a floor-length cape. I mean... He rapped about Bentleys and Benjamins and held to court, and again, you're talking about his lyrics now. Public information. This is not investigative journalism. So he rapped about Bentleys and Benjamins. and held court at his over-the-top annual white parties attended by Leonardo DiCaprio, Beyoncé, Mariah Carey, and Martha Stewart. He called himself the Great Gatsby, of course he did, and considered circus showman P.T. Barnum his muse. Now, the spotlight Combs constantly chased is trained on his alleged crimes. In staggering scenes that underscored his fall from grace, heavily armed Homeland Security agents stormed his sprawling, and we all know this, right? We all know about the raid. They tore through his offices and bedrooms, they left cablings dangling from a command center, multiple safes were left wide open, 3 gleaming Grammys and an Oscar sat atop a gutted console, like relics of a crumbling regime. A crestfallen Combs, this is like a novel, more than journalism. A crestfallen Combs was later seen alone, a cell phone hanging useless in his hand, as he slowly paced around Miami Locka Airport. His vacation in the Bahamas was canceled. Oh no. His once fortified homes breached, his adult sons handcuffed, and his empire on the brink. So guys, have we learned anything new so far from this super investigation by the Rolling Stone, who's waited 6 months to release this big bombshell 6-month investigation? On the eve, have you, about CNN coming forward and saying, the federal grand jury is getting prepared, and even though HSI, Homeland Security, they haven't given us confirmation that a grand jury is set to take place, but they did confirm that they are still investigating and speaking with these accusers. Sometimes they're speaking with them more than once and letting them know that they may be called. We get this big confirmation in the early hours last night into tonight, early morning, and Rolling Stone releases this big exclusive, and they've been promoting it pretty heavily since yesterday evening. So, but have we learned anything new? Have we learned anything new? Let's see, the video is not convincing at all, talking about the apology video. Pam says his eyes were telling the true story, dead inside. Yeah, and then looking down a lot, not wanting to make. I know when you record a video, you're not truly making eye contact, but you look at the screen and it looked like he was like this the whole time he was talking. And Barbara says the apology video is for God, not for Cassie, since he can't say her name without opening himself up to another lawsuit or payout. That might be killing him inside. And I see Fahim has joined. Hey, Fahim. Daisy's here. Hey, Daisy. And then I think I'm going to get lost if I try to dig in. And then Fahim says enough is enough. I can't stand for these allegations against the diddler to go unpunished. Abusers of this nature should be flogged. Both, I guess, right? Flagged and flogged. But with that being said, it seems like this grand jury's coming. I think it's better that they're not rushing into things, right? You want to get the indictment right. You want to put the right things in front of the grand jury. You don't want to make any missteps. You want to charge everything that should be charged. And we've seen from the CNN exclusive that they were initially looking at sex trafficking, but now they've added in some of these other things involving the violencing and the drug use and possible movement of the drugs, right? Because it's possible he was moving drugs across borders, different states, whatever. So they've expanded their scope to do a more thorough investigation to tack on the appropriate charges. They're not just throwing in the kitchen sink to start and rushing into it and messing it up, which that I at least appreciate. And then Daisy says they, meaning Rolling Stone, spent 6 months reading public lawsuits, YouTube comments, gossip blogs, and sent a "Did he do it?" questionnaire to 300 people, while only 50 responded, and even less than that put their name on it. And Cassie does not want to speak to Rolling Stone. She declined through her lawyer to respond to Rolling Stone. So Cassie's been willing to speak. She filed a whole lawsuit that went into some pretty public things. She's also made statements through her lawyer. Her lawyers made statements on their own in regards to Cassie. And then Cassie's made her own posts, public statements to Instagram. Like posting, when you write something in your notes app and it's a few paragraphs and you post a screenshot of it to Instagram to release your own written statement to the public. She's done that. She doesn't want to talk to Rolling Stone. She doesn't want to talk to Cheyenne Roundtree. And then Lord says, and the lessons are, abuse is assault. Money can't buy love. You can purchase some levels of cooperation, but not love after 12 years in a relationship and heavy drug use. Say no to drugs. And yeah, man, to me personally, It's not worth the money to lose a decade of my life. That even after you get out of it, you've got to fight to get back. So I have empathy for anyone like in that situation or recovering from that situation. But it's important to talk about, don't fall into it in the first place. The money's never worth it to lose that much of your life. And then to still have to recover from what you went through. And then, yeah, smart move for Cassie not to speak to Rolling Stone. And then let's see what else we're talking about over here. Back to this article. Because there's a lot more, but I still don't know if it's going to be anything we don't already know. While the raids made global headlines, yes, public knowledge, the silence from Combs' famous friends was palpable. This felt different than before, when he could use a checkbook, a high-powered attorney, and a media blitz to overcome scrapes with the law, when his charisma, influence, and connections would allow him to shake off allegations of violence or outcry from his disenfranchised artists. Reparations is getting closer and closer, former Bad Boy artist Mace said a day after the raids. The big payback. So we're quoting another public quote from someone else. And again, this is supposed to be in investigations. Rolling Stone said they spoke to over 300 people, and everything so far is just something someone said publicly somewhere else. It seems like they're trying to appeal to the sentiment that the public currently holds for Diddy, without getting to that conclusion on their own independently. They're working backwards to retrofit their writing to the current public sentiment. Over the past 6 months, Rolling Stone conducted dozens of interviews with Combs' former friends. Now it's just dozens? Okay, so we're going to get the numbers here. Over the past 6 months, Rolling Stone conducted dozens of interviews. Well, dozens would probably mean at least 24, but no more than 100. That's a decent range, I guess. With Combs' former friends, acquaintances, employees, and bad boy artists, as well as industry insiders. Out of 300 plus people contacted for this investigation, more than 50. That's self-serving language. That's a 1 in 6 response rate. Is that a success? If you reach out to 300 people, would you word it as, and more than 50 were willing to speak with me? Or would you word it as, well, I tried contacting over 300 people, but only 50 were willing to speak with me? Several would do so only off the record, which makes sense, citing a fear of retribution. Some requested compensation in exchange for their stories. Rolling Stone does not pay for interviews. Many declined to participate, wanting to distance themselves from Combs. So this to me, some. We don't have a number, which is fine. You know, they're not going to, I guess, why would you account a total counting of that? But are they adding this? Did we see this in other articles that we've looked at from the Rolling Stone? Because to me, if you're finally mentioning this, and I've read plenty of expose, feature, investigative journalism articles from the Rolling Stone where people decline to talk, they always mention that people are afraid to speak because of fear of retribution. They always mention this. But here when we're getting only a 1 in 6 dice roll rate, where nobody wants to speak to you, Cheyenne Roundtree, you're finally including an excuse for why the 50 people, and does this include, are these 2 reasons? Does this 50 encompass these 2 groups of people? Is this 50 people were willing to speak with us, but some of those 50 only wanted to be off the record and others wanted compensation? So the end number of who was willing to speak with us is actually much less than 50. It just seems like they know that that's not a good response rate. And they're finally offering an excuse that I've never personally seen them offer in other articles. Many declined to participate, wanting to distance themselves from Combs. I'm trying to leave that part of my life behind, says one former employee. Those who did speak about Combs describe a complicated man with opposing personas. Outwardly, they see a taskmaster who is unapologetically driven, generous, and jovial. Even silly at times. He can be the same privately, but associates who got close enough to him discovered something darker behind the facade. A menacing figure who desperately wants to be accepted and admired, who uses public declarations of devotion, splashy donations, and boasts that he is brother love to hide an undercurrent of alleged abuse and violence that, in one previously unreported allegation, traces back to before his career even started. Now, this sounds like they just looked at Twitter and looked at looked at responses. X. They looked at X. And looked at what people were saying. Oh, now he's just pretending to be brother love. It looks like they watched Pam Entertainment TV's video. Because I think Pam came down on Diddy, called Diddy out for now he's got this brother love persona. And they're writing a whole article using someone else's commentary. In one previously unreported allegation, which traces back to before his career even started, Combs wielded his growing power to bend people to his will, sources claim. Sending staffers to win back one-time girlfriend Jennifer Lopez, beating a label executive bloody after he became romantically involved with Combs' ex-partner Kim Porter, and allegedly trying to solicit sex from a woman on his payroll. Now, if you aren't following the other bloggers, if you aren't following, really I need to learn how to say her name. Is it Tisa or Tisha Tells? Tisha has hinted at all of this. And honestly, when I see something come out about a possible rumbling about Diddy and a former accuser or a former situation or a former crazy story about Diddy, she's getting tagged left and right. So honestly, Rolling Stone could just go and search on X for times that she is tagged in a post and get all of their information for this article based on what people are trying to send to a creator they actually respect and want to see cover certain things, and just use that to curate the information to put in this big investigative article. Because all of these things have been talked about and speculated by other creators. But I guess this is the first time that if you stay off of X, if you're not really watching the YouTube discourse on the Diddy situation, I would say this is probably the first thing that may be news to someone who didn't look at the lawsuits. But it's not original investigative work for the Rolling Stone. As part of this investigation, Rolling Stone sent Combs a detailed list of questions about the new and pending allegations. So they sent... and I think... I'm not sure if I'm thinking of Cheyenne Roundtree or Kat Tenbarge or Taylor Lorenz. But have you ever seen someone post the list of questions that a journalist, a culture reporter, has sent them, asking them to respond to? All of the questions are like loaded, like, did you assault someone? Have you assaulted anybody ever? Do you deny this? They get this long list of questions. So it's not surprising that he didn't specifically address any of them. You shouldn't, especially if a criminal action's on the way. Mr. Combs cannot comment on settled litigation, will not comment on pending litigation, and cannot address every allegation picked up by the press from any source, no matter how unreliable, his lawyer Jonathan Davis tells Rolling Stone. We are aware that the proper authorities are conducting a thorough investigation, and therefore have confidence any important issues will be addressed in the proper forum, where the rules distinguish facts from fiction. Now, that's a very lawyerly statement, but you know, shout out to Diddy's lawyers for being smart enough to not just send Rolling Stone a bunch of stuff that could be used against someone in a criminal action. Remove Diddy from the situation. But anybody, you gotta be smart about what you tell a publication, both for PR purposes and for litigation purposes. Now we're going to talk about Joy Dickerson-Neal, who, again, nothing new. She has a whole lawsuit that's public. And there's been commentary and discourse surrounding her situation for a long time. But she actually speaks to Rolling Stone. Do we get anything new, though? So Joy Dickerson-Neal, who's suing Combs for sexual assault, tells Rolling Stone that her decision to come forward isn't about money. It's about making sure the world sees that this man who rose to the level of an icon is actually sick and has left so many victims in the wake of his unpublished disgusting behavior for years. So, just this statement. For Ventura, and that's it. That's all we get. This is the first time in this article we've got something unique to Rolling Stone. And the sentiment itself isn't new. It's just a specific statement that's new. This specific statement is new, even though the sentiment's not new. That's the first thing we get that the Rolling Stone can say is their own. Besides this quote, like, we're not going to answer your list of questions. For Ventura, Combs presented her as her flashy, established 37-year-old label boss when he pulled her into a bathroom and forcibly kissed her on her 21st birthday in 2007, leaving her in tears, according to her complaint. She says he was holding the keys to her nascent music career when he pressured her to consume drugs and have sex that same year. Combs quickly became deeply entrenched in every aspect of her life, paying for her apartment, having her medical records sent directly to him, and lashing out for perceived slights, the lawsuit says. When Ventura tried to move on, he had a brief romantic relationship with musician Kid Cudi. Oh, look, not another new story. Combs allegedly beat her. Combs later told Ventura he planned to blow up the rapper's car in the driveway, the lawsuit claims. In a statement to the New York Times in November, Cudi confirmed. So we're circular citing the New York Times back in November for this big 6-month journal investigation expose published yesterday. This is all true, Cudi said to the New York Times. In her suit, Ventura says she learned to blindly submit to Combs to avoid vicious beatings. Eventually, her lawsuit claims, every other sentence is, in this lawsuit, in this lawsuit, in this other thing. The abuse extended to sex trafficking, with Combs ordering her to slather herself in oil, get high and drunk, and have intercourse with male sex workers, which is why I think CNN coming out today and saying, look, we've got some new information on what was seized during the Fed raid, and some of that stuff includes video footage of alleged victims in Diddy's residence, possibly being victimized, and one of these potential victims is a male sex worker, right? Because we did see Cassie reference these freak-offs in her filing, and Cassie and CNN came forward and really corroborated this story of the hotel elevator assault. So, CNN is bringing a small window of information forward. But so far they brought a receipt, and they're bringing a statement that they've well qualified as sources are telling us that this is what's on the footage that was retrieved from the federal raid. They're not concluding that it's true. They're letting us know that that's what they're hearing. And then the Rolling Stone, we're not even halfway scrolling through this page. And we've got paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of nothing new. Nothing new. So, yeah, we're talking about the freak-offs from her lawsuit. The public got a disturbing window into Combs' treatment of Ventura in the surveillance video unearthed by CNN. Great investigative work, Rolling Stone. Such good investigations. You're really killing it out here. In it, a towel-clad Combs is seen pursuing a barefoot, and we know. After years in silence and darkness, I am finally ready to tell my story. So she's saying in a statement. Not to Rolling Stone. As Ventura's damning allegations were on the verge of going public, Combs was strategizing according to Jones, who produced multiple songs on Combs' Grammy-nominated 2023 release, The Love Album Off the Grid. He detailed how he planned to leverage his relationship with Pastor Bishop T.D. Jakes. Oh, beating me up. Hold on. Let me take a drink. To soften the impact on his public image. Jones wrote in a sworn declaration in April. Jakes did not reply to a request for comment. Jakes doesn't want to speak to Rolling Stone. Publicly, Combs seemingly jumped into overdrive producing positive press. He fulfilled his $1 million promise to his alma mater, Howard University, and the football program at another historically black college, Jackson State University. He launched Empower Global, an e-commerce platform for black entrepreneurs. And in dropping his new album, proclaiming he was in his love era, he announced, all public announcements, that he was giving bad boy artists and songwriters their publishing rights back. Only some artists say they were offered rights back, and Danity Kane's Aubrey O'Day said she refused because the offer came with a mandatory non-disclosure agreement. And this is not Aubrey O'Day speaking to Rolling Stone. She made a video discussing this. Or she was on an interview. But whatever it was, this was widely shared, where Aubrey O'Day was speaking about this. The terms, if she wanted her publishing rights back. So, a year before her breakup with Combs, Ventura conceptualized a short film titled Cassie that appears telling in hindsight. In a voiceover speaking about the film's fictionalized romance, she says, How do you just walk away from it and escape it? I just want to be free. So, and again, this is linking to, let me see. This might copyright strike me, so I'm just going to pull it up. But if you go to Cassie's channel, this is something you can see. It was published 6 years ago to her own channel. And it's like this trailer for the story that she's self-titling. So again, not anything new coming from Rolling Stone. And yeah, so Arbiko, you've totally got it. This reads like a report written with Wikipedia pages. Oh my god. Oh my god, Tamara, shout out to Tamara. It is absolutely going down. And I want to be clear if anyone's joined this late. We are reading a Rolling Stone article. And I am on the side that pretty much believes that with everything I know about Diddy, he's capable of having done the things he's being accused of. I do still want to be pretty cautious of anyone coming out and using his poor reputation to tack on an accusation that isn't really true, just because they know it'll fly because of public sentiment towards Diddy. So I have that one small reservation. But right now what I'm doing, if you see me laughing, I'm not laughing about what people have gone through with their experiences with Diddy. I'm laughing about how the Rolling Stone is advertising that they've put 6 months of investigative journalism work into putting this big expose together. And as Arbiko says, it just reads like a report written with Wikipedia pages. Because everything that's coming forward, we're finding out people didn't want to speak to Rolling Stone. Who would really be surprised at this point? Rolling Stone is not what they used to be. But even people with albums to promote. The celebrity pastor, Jakes, doesn't want to speak, even though he's got some music project coming out. Doesn't want to speak to a publication that was known for music news and promoting artists. They're just rehashing things that may as well be in a Wikipedia article. So, Samara, thank you so much for your super chat. By the way, I am going to drop a link if anyone wants to come up and speak after we get through this article. I want to look at some social media reactions because people are tearing into Rolling Stone on X for trying to put this expose together now. So late. 6 months later. And they're calling it a big investigation. And we're analyzing if it really pulls anything new to the surface. But Tamara and others, I will drop a link if you guys want to share your commentary. But Tamara has her own podcast on YouTube. It's the Pussycat Talk podcast. If you look it up, she is like one of the first to cover new details that are coming out about Diddy and other figures in pop culture and the entertainment space. So shout out to Tamara. And if you do want to come up later, I will drop the link. So let's see, what are we getting? So we've got this short film. Puff is out here acting crazy. He's beating her. Now we're talking about the hotel security footage. Prompted horrific reactions around the world. Forced to acknowledge his actions. Combs made a rare admission of guilt, but tailored it to that incident. Yeah, this is the apology video. I was fucked up, I hit rock bottom, and I make no excuses. I take full responsibility for my actions in that video. I'm disgusted. He claimed he went to therapy and rehab and was truly sorry. Ventura's lawyers, again, not speaking to Rolling Stone, but they've spoken elsewhere, said Combs' apology showed his pathetic desperation. Many who watched footage of the assault were stunned, even those who'd known Combs for years. LaJoyce Brookshire, a former publicity executive at Bad Boy, says she was disturbed to learn that these types of actions could have occurred, and that Puffy could stand in my face the next day with a straight face. That shakes me to my core. You know, I don't know anything about LaJoyce Brookshire, so I'm going to take this at face value, right? But I do have questions about if every single person that's ever been in Diddy's space holds the same sentiment. Like, look, I can't believe he was doing this and I had no idea. I believe that's totally believable for some people. But I'd be curious if that's true and genuine for everybody that was in Diddy's circle to say, to adopt that same sentiment here. So again, I don't know anything about LaJoyce, but just in general. Several women who attended Howard's with Combs, so this is going back to college, however, had seen signs of a controlling and abusive personality decades ago. So this is where we'll finally maybe get some new information. Combs started at the esteemed college in the fall of 1987 and quickly earned a reputation for throwing legendary rowdy parties. Flamboyant and boisterous, he was often seen driving his convertible around campus and passing out flyers. Though he left after his sophomore year, Combs turned Howard into a pipeline for his enterprises, teaming up with a future label execs and producers Harvey Pierre, Mark Pitts, and Derek D. Angeletti, all key figures in Bad Boy's early success. Shantae Page, a former A&R executive for Universal Motown Record Group, was among those who say they had positive experiences with Combs at Howard. So, Shantae Page says, it was good. They called his iconic parties a once-in-a-lifetime type of vibe. He was a go-getter from the start, she says, always in the know. So far, we've got a statement from I'm assuming this was a statement to Rolling Stone. They don't specify, but we do know that some people did speak to Rolling Stone. So let's assume this statement was exclusive to Rolling Stone from Shantae Page. This is like the first one, and it's positive. But other women described previously unreported incidents involving unwanted touching and fits of rage. One woman, who is unnamed, says she kept as far away as possible after Combs caressed her back without warning and asked if she'd be willing to meet one of his friends. Another former student recalled that Combs flew off the handle after she objected to him cutting a cafeteria line. So, we've got 3 people, and we've got kind of like ransom letter, cookie cutter. Like from these 2 people, we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 words total from 2 of these women. That's how few people want to speak to Rolling Stone and how little people want to say to Rolling Stone. While the moments may seem small, they showed flashes of danger that would soon explode. A third former student, so now we're on 3, recalls how the future mogul would tap on the window of an English class to get a girlfriend to ditch. The visits became noticeably unwelcome, the classmate tells Rolling Stone. She would tense up when Combs appeared. The student, who sat next to the woman in class, recalls, he just had a weird control thing. I felt like she was fearful. The classmate who requested, are we going to hear from this? Is the classmate the girl that was being called out? The classmate who requested anonymity due to fear of retribution says her concerns were validated when Combs appeared outside the school's Harriet Tubman quadrangle dorm and started screaming in a belligerent manner for his girlfriend to come outside. The classmate says other women soon began running through the halls, knocking on doors in a panic. They were sounding the alarms that Combs, known then by his nickname Puff, was attacking the young woman outside, she recalls. Puff is out here acting crazy. He's beating her, the fellow student said, according to his classmate. Maybe you guys know better. How long has he gone by the name Puff? Because they're saying he was known then by Puff, but when did he start going by Puff? I don't know if that's really important, but just so I can keep my track of time kind of aligned. He screamed and hollered and acted a stone fool until she came downstairs. Another Howard student who witnessed the alleged attack tells Rolling Stone. She said Combs used what appeared to be a belt to strike the young woman, all over the place, speaking on the condition of anonymity due to the sensitive nature of the incident. The witness said Combs appeared super angry and was screaming at the top of his lungs. She says he whooped her butt, like really whooped her butt. The witness says the woman was clearly terrorized. She was trying to defend herself a little bit. She was crying and we were telling him, get off her. We were screaming for her. A third source also recalled the alleged assault to Rolling Stone. The woman at the center of the attack declined comment. So, we do have one incident, and we apparently have 3 people speaking about witnessing it. Combs was born with a short fuse, telling Jet magazine he earned his nickname as a kid because he would always huff and puff. Okay, so now they're gonna... Did they tell us? That's why my friends started calling me Diddy, or Puffy, because I had a temper. His mom, Janice, a former kindergarten teacher, described him as a ham. Combs barely knew his father, Melvin, a handsome drug dealer working for Harlem Kingpin. He was murdered in 1972 at the age of 33 when Combs was just a toddler. Throughout the years, Combs mourned the loss of a father figure, but Melvin had a profound influence on him nonetheless. Even if we don't know our parents, we still have their DNA, we also have their genes. I have his hustler's mentality, his hustler spirit, his drive, his determination, his swag. So now we're going, and I think this is weird, right? We finally get into something. we get some new story. This is what happened at Howard College days. And I hadn't heard about him beating some girlfriend with a belt at Howard University. I don't know if that's part of an ongoing like litigation with someone that's maybe come forward about him. But it seems like, to me, I haven't heard of that before. So this is the first time we get Rolling Stone talking about something new. And then immediately after, we go back into storytelling how he grew up. Like the beginning of a Wikipedia article. So we finally get something that's actually a bit investigative. And now we're switching over to biopic land. So when his mom moves the family from Harlem to the suburb of Mount Vernon, 12 miles north, Combs straddled disparate worlds. In one, he was a defensive back on the football team at his all-boys Catholic high school. In the other, he rode a train to the city, immersing himself in its burgeoning hip-hop scene. I didn't know exactly what he would do, but he was blasting me out the house with his mixing kit I bought him when he was 13, making that noise, scratching those records. Janice told Vibe. After a taste of celebrity at Howard, Combs itched for more. He was hellbent on breaking into the music industry, simultaneously attending college and working a part-time internship at Uptown Records back in New York City. It was Uptown artist Heavy D, a neighbor in Mount Vernon, who brokered the job interview after Combs repeatedly badgered the rapper at their local pizza spot. Former Uptown A&R VP Kurt Woodley tells Rolling Stone. Okay, so we have someone speaking to Rolling Stone, but they're an A&R exec. Combs commuted from Howard for the job, evading the train fare by hiding from the conductor in the bathroom. He dropped out of school to work at Uptown full-time, eventually becoming CEO Andre Harrell's Menzie. So, this was a quote from earlier that they just put in the middle of the article. And then we're going to talk more about this label. But what are you guys saying? He's gone by Puff for a long time, 20 to 30 years. And it was already his name when he was an intern. And then Fahim, going back to the belt story at Howard University, says, me either, and I'm from DC, first I've heard. And then Daisy says, yeah, they reported that in college he cut someone in line in the cafeteria. That's a little odd. I mean, maybe he was like really showboaty about it. Maybe he was like, I'm Puff. Move out of the way. So, but I'm not sure. But yeah, some of that, it was like weird. They like used all these little details and then crammed this paragraph together in the middle of the article about this belt story. And then they couch it between, Cassie makes a short film. And then here's his story of his early life and his early segue into the music industry. We're back to the story narrative. So Combs' ascent at Uptown is by now part of his lore. He helped newcomers Mary J. Blige and Jodeci, or what was that? Was it Court TV that called him Jodeci? They helped them go multi-platinum after reshaping their images. He reinvented the remix and ushered hip-hop soul into the cultural lexicon. He threw exclusive Daddy's House parties at the since-shuttered Manhattan hip-hop club Red Zone, and even his older Uptown colleagues jockeyed to attend. He had the ability to convince people that whatever he was doing or wherever he was the hot shit. Dan Charnas, author of The Big Payback, The History of the Business of Hip-Hop, tells Rolling Stone. So we get another statement, someone that's willing to speak to Rolling Stone, someone that's got a book to promote. He understood more than anyone how the innovations of hip-hop, specifically sampling and using classic rap records as a basis for R&B songs, would be really powerful for the generation. And again, when I keep pointing out who's actually speaking to Rolling Stone, what are the conditions they're speaking to Rolling Stone under, it's not to just say that, hey, nobody wants to speak. It's to contrast the amount of people that are speaking in other places, but very few people want to speak to Rolling Stone specifically, even though they went out and tried to get 300 people to speak to them. So that's my point. And then, yeah, so I know it's Jodeci, but there was, I really think it was someone from Court TV. When they were going through one of the lawsuits, they said Jodeci. And then why didn't anyone call the police if he was beating her with a belt? I mean, to be honest, it's possible they did, and it was like some university person that showed up and was just kind of like, who really knows? But then it's also possible people stood there and didn't call the police. So let's see. As Combs' star was rising at Uptown, his predatory instincts resurfaced. according to the sexual assault lawsuit filed by Joy Dickerson Neal last November. So Rolling Stone's going back to the lawsuits for their big investigative journalism. Dickerson Neal acted opposite Combs in a 1990 music video and received what she considered a warning from Bronx rapper Sister Soulja to keep her distance given his infamous reputation. Sister Soulja does not want to talk to Rolling Stone. Oh, no. No, it wasn't me that said it wrong, I promise. So, if you rewind it and you go back, I say Jodeci. And then I say, or Jodikai, according to, I think they said Jodikai, maybe they said Jodiki. According to, I'm positive it was one of the Court TV guys with like I can picture his face, but I don't know his name. Dickerson Neal says she reluctantly agreed to a dinner date with Combs in January 1991 while she was a college student paying for her studies with a restaurant job. Weary of being alone with him, she requested they dine where she worked. She alleges Combs spiked her drink, and guys, this is all from the lawsuit. This is not from someone telling Rolling Stone something. When she used the restroom and later pressured her into taking a hit off a blunt. She says her legs went rubbery a short time later, and that Combs R-worded her at a nearby residence. She also claims Combs filmed the attack and showed the video to others like a trophy. Through a rep, Combs denied the allegations at this time. That wasn't to Rolling Stone, though. I've seen that denial elsewhere. That was just a media release statement. So through a rep, Combs denied the allegations at the time. This 32-year-old story is made up and not credible. Mr. Combs never assaulted her. Combs' lawyers have moved to dismiss the lawsuit, calling the allegations false, offensive, and salacious. Now, AV to the Seventh Power went through this lawsuit in full and raised the point that it's interesting that Diddy's actually responded and made a full-blown response motion to dismiss. And most of the arguments were that they were citing a law that didn't exist and shouldn't retroactively be applied. But if you want to check that out, she really did a great breakdown. That's AV to the Seventh Power. But again, with the Rolling Stone article here, they're not talking about something that the rep came and gave a statement to Rolling Stone. They're just citing other things that have been publicly known and widely talked about. Mike Nice Lewis, maybe Niece, who worked with Dickerson Neal at the short-lived PMD Records, tells Rolling Stone that she confided in him at the office about the alleged sexual assault in the early 1990s. Combs and Bad Boy came up in the conversation, and Lewis says Dickerson Neal's demeanor abruptly changed. Lewis claims Dickerson Neal told him that she had a very bad sexual experience with Combs, keeping her head down as she talked. I believe Joy, he says. I just knew from what she was telling me that it still affected her, even 2 years later, adds Michelle Sayola, attorney for Dickerson Neal, and another accuser, Crystal McKinney. The amount of irreparable harm to my clients' mental health and professional lives cannot be overstated. So this one, okay, so we have Lewis speaks to Rolling Stone, and then we have the attorney for both Dickerson Neal and Crystal McKinney speaking to Rolling Stone. Within hours of Dickerson Neal filing her complaint, another woman sued Combs for rape. Liza Gardner claims she was 16 in 1990 when she and a friend met Combs and Uptown singer-songwriter Aaron Hall at an MCA Records event in Manhattan. Gardner alleges that the men were very flirtatious and handsy, feeding the girls drinks and inviting them to Hall's residence for an after-party. She alleges Combs offered her more alcohol at Hall's home in New Jersey and forced her into sex despite her protests. While she was still shocked and traumatized trying to get dressed, Hall allegedly barged into the room, pinned her down, and R-worded her too. Gardner claims an irate Combs later showed up where she was staying and began choking her until she almost passed out. Combs feared the women would come tell his girlfriend what he and Hall had done, the lawsuit claims. So not Rolling Stone. Combs' legal team denied Gardner's allegations, calling them a money grab. But another woman who says she was with Gardner the night of the alleged attack corroborated many details of Gardner's lawsuit in a sworn affidavit filed in mid-May. The woman, who is the younger sister of the friend mentioned in Gardner's complaint, said she has a photo of herself with Gardner and Hall from the evening in question. She recalled frantically looking around Hall's apartment for her sister and Gardner after they disappeared with Combs and Hall. The then 15-year-old said she walked into a room and saw a man watching whatever Puffy was doing to Liza. The woman wrote that she woke the next morning at a different location where an upset Gardner said Combs had just shown up there and choked her. Aaron Hall did not respond to Rolling Stone for a request for comment. Although I guess you're being accused, you probably shouldn't probably smart to not respond. Back to the Uptown office, Combs' inflated ego, outsized opinions, and Machiavellian scheming were becoming a problem for his peers. He went from internally divisive to openly controversial in December 1991, when he and Heavy D helped organize a celebrity charity basketball game at the City College of New York that left 9 people dead, aged 15 to 28, and dozens injured in a stampede. Combs shirked responsibility, claiming he had tried to enlist help from the NYPD and that he had personally administered CPR to several people. Well, that's kind of creepy if you if you think about it now. That's creative licensing on my part. But an incident report ordered by then-Mayor David Dinkins faulted him for allowing inexperienced underlings to handle the event planning and found that reckless overpromotion had drawn too many people without tickets to the event. With the city investigating possible criminal charges, lawsuits mounting, and rivals pushing Harrell to cut Combs loose, the Uptown exec urged Combs to lie low. A terrified Combs spent months holed up in Manhattan Hotel with his mother, according to Kirk Burroughs, Bad Boy's co-founding partner and president, who was fired from Bad Boy in 1997. In 2003, he sued, which is public, Combs for allegedly threatening him with a baseball bat and coercing him into signing over his stake in the company. His claims were dismissed as beyond the statute of limitations. After the controversy subsided and Combs returned to Uptown, he still considered himself Harrell's heir apparent. But his access to his mentor was restricted. He spent much of 1992 producing Mary J. Blige's landmark debut, What's the 411, gaining redemption in the album's acclaim. Around this time, he founded his own Uptown imprint, Bad Boy Entertainment, where he could sign his own artists and make extra cash. Burroughs remembers jealous Uptown execs referring to Combs as Satan and flipping him off as they walked by his small offices in the Uptown building. Harrell soured on him too. As Woodley recalls, Harrell said, "I'm going to fire Puff. He's getting a little too big for himself. He's bothering people." Okay, so one person recognized it. With pressure mounting, Harrell fired Combs on July 1993. Uptown was supposed to oversee the album release of Combs' new assignee, Christopher Wallace, aka Biggie, but Combs was free to find a new home for his fledgling label. So, and I think this isn't really news to anyone who, maybe, obviously people that followed the hip-hop scene during this time, or people that have looked back at, how hip-hop evolved throughout the years with the major artists. But I also don't think that this is too new for people that are looking backwards at things that happened with Tupac and Notorious B.I.G. and what was Diddy's possible role in that, the Keef D stuff. Again, this isn't anything exclusive. Yeah, it's not news. It might be an easy way to read through it, but again, going back to what Arbiko said, it's like a Wikipedia page entry. The termination was devastating for Combs, Burroughs says, leaving the 23-year-old crying buckets of tears outside the office. He loved Andre, Burroughs says. He loved Uptown. He didn't understand what Bad Boys was going to be. "I cried for a couple days and felt like I wanted to jump off a building," Combs told Rolling Stone. So Combs speaks to Rolling Stone in 1995. "I think at times I was hard to work with. Possibly I was doing shit that an asshole would do, just abusing the power. But that was only a little bit of the time." And now we're going to go through the making of, he leaves Uptown and where does he go? So, blamed for a tragedy that claimed 9 lives, Combs could have faded into obscurity, but he was scrappy and determined. Quickly securing a reported $10 million deal from Arista Records' Clive Davis that kept Bad Boy Entertainment alive. Now, he was helming a skeleton crew eager to turn artists into superstars and cement hip-hop as a mainstream genre. "While the world did not understand the power of hip-hop, I was working in it and watching it unfold," says Michelle Joyce, Bad Boy's first director of marketing. "I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that if it was going to be pop, that it wasn't if it was going to be pop, it was when. It wasn't easy, hours were brutal, pay was low, and the workload was intense. Combs expected his small team to make the impossible possible." Brookshire, the former director of publicity for Arista and Bad Boy, recalls Combs demanding she hire a daredevil to scale a skyscraper to promote the band 112. Now, I feel like this has been talked about in other documentaries, so I don't think that this is something that Brookshire is now telling Rolling Stone. I'm not that deep into knowing what was going on back in these days, I wasn't really watching like VH1, BET, MTV. I might have listened to the radio, but that doesn't go into like the behind the scenes publicity type stuff. But I don't feel like this is new either. The next summer, their work paid off with Craig Mack's ubiquitous Flavor in Your Ear and the notorious B.I.G.'s One More Chance. In the next 3 years, Bad Boy would become the premier label for upcoming hip-hop and R&B artists, churning out chart-topping albums from Faith Evans, Total, and 112, and soundtracking clubs and radio stations nationwide. And in Wallace, Bad Boy had a budding superstar, Biggie Smalls, the storytelling genius with an effortless flow. This is a lot. If this is being heralded as an exclusive on Diddy's ex-friends coming forward and saying what they think of the Bad Boy, we're close to halfway through. And it's biopic. It's like all biopic with like 1 or 2 statements that aren't from someone with a book. In the next 3 years, Bad Boy would become the premier label for upcoming... Oh, I'm down here. Still, Combs is volatile. Okay, we're switching away from biopic back to the volatility. Burroughs says he once saw Combs attack a woman inside Bad Boy's office in 1994. He and another ex-employee tell Rolling Stone. Okay, so we've got these two people talking about this story to Rolling Stone. They say that they had to tear Combs off the woman after hearing screams and the sound of shattering glass. The woman herself declined Rolling Stone's request for comment. Felicia Newsom, the first manager of Bad Boy's recording studio Daddy's House, says she once held Combs back when he was about to beat this girl's ass after a fight broke out between 2 women. I'm holding him by his waist, saying, "You need to calm down. This is not your fight," Newsom recalls. And then again, this is not a new photo. This was in April Lamprose's lawsuit. The photo was included. It was in black and white when we read it, I think. But the photo was in that lawsuit, written by Tyrone Blackburn. So, not a new picture here, not an exclusive. Former Arista intern April Lamprose claims Combs turned violent with her. In a lawsuit filed in May, Lamprose alleges Combs attacked her in a parking garage in the mid-1990s, forcing her to her knees to perform oral sex. It was one of 4 horrific sexual assaults she says she endured during her on-off relationship with Combs. As Bad Boy was on the rise, staffers kept Combs' transgressions quiet, whether out of loyalty, fear, or a belief that such incidents were rare. Outwardly, she was the label's unceasing hype man, ad-libbing on tracks and making cameos in the artist's videos. It was clear he wanted something bigger for himself. I distinctly remember the day that Clive Davis called and asked me to start garnering press for Puffy, just as if he were the artist, says Brookshire. Behind his back, I used to call him my problem child, the notorious VIP. Combs got all of the press he wanted when he and his LA counterpart, Death Row Records boss Marion Suge Knight, became entangled in a years-long heavyweight hip-hop fight. And again, this is not new. The pair had once been friendly. Combs even modeled Bad Boy after Death Row, he told Rolling Stone in 1997. So, again, we're going back. People are speaking to Rolling Stone, but it was when Rolling Stone had a little bit more of a respectable reputation for journalism. But the subsequent rivalry between Biggie and Knight's charismatic superstar Tupac Shakur would turn into a Pyrrhic victory for both labels. Combs was fond of Tupac, admiring his ability to marry street credibility with mainstream appeal. Burroughs knows that the Bad Boy team spent the summer of 1993 studying the rapper's buoyant hit, I Get Around, as a blueprint for a commercial hip-hop record. Desperate to be taken seriously, Combs tried to foster a friendship, but Shakur wasn't interested. Pac didn't have any kind of respect for Puff, which that's not news either. That is not news, says 90s hip-hop photographer Monique Bunn, who was close with Wallace and other Bad Boy artists. To Shakur, even Wallace, Bunn says, Combs was a corny executive. I don't know if that quote's new, but that's hilarious. Instead, Shakur bonded with Wallace, whom he viewed as peer, Burroughs remembers. As a result, he says, referring to Combs, there was someone on the sidelines jealous. And again, this is old photo archives. The friendship would be short-lived. So we're going to go through, Tupac gets shot, Combs denies everything, Bad Boy starts encouraging Wallace to write certain songs, even though the rapper's not feeling so beefy with his former friend, tensions are frothing. None of this is new or shocking or really I don't know, pertinent to the essay accusers. Maybe it's relevant for volatility. But, none of this is new. We're going to talk about the drive-by. Suge Knight points the finger at Combs. We have the trial for Keefe D coming up, but that's all public. This isn't like exclusive journalism by the Rolling Stone. And then Biggie's killed. And then multiple reports allege Wallace had been preparing to leave Bad Boy shortly before his death. So there's the whole theory that Diddy had something to do with it, which is nothing new. Nothing new. This is crazy. We are so far into the trenches here for an exclusive. And we have the belt story. And him breaking up a fight or saying he was going to jump into a fight in the studio. Which I'm not even sure if that's new. Because I feel like that may have been talked about in one of his behind the scenes type video things. What are you guys thinking? Yeah, this is literally blah, blah, blah. He was a corny dude. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think that quote's anything new or exclusive. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Copy and paste journalism. That's a good way to put it. Oh my goodness. And then, hey, KRST. We're not really covering anything new so far. We had the newest stuff, guys, was that short exclusive from CNN. Who said, look, we still don't know. It's still unclear if this video from the hotel in 2016 was something that the feds gathered while raiding the house, or if they gathered it from one of the people they've been interviewing. Still unclear. So that's an update there that it's not conclusively something that was found in the mansion. Someone else could have had a copy of it, which is interesting to me. And we also find out that there's footage from recorded inside of Diddy's residence that has other alleged victims, footage of them in the mansion, a male sex worker, possibly footage of victimization occurring in Diddy's residence. The feds recovered some video footage of this. We don't know much detail. It was pretty constrained in how it was reported, and that's where CNN left it. And we get the grand jury possibly coming along with witnesses being told, hey, you may be called to speak in front of a federal grand jury. But then we had this exclusive come out last night from the Rolling Stone that's super duper long, with nothing in it. Nothing in it. This is crazy. Yeah, Daisy says it's misleading to label it as exclusive when it might only be exclusive to someone who lives under a rock. And then Erica says they made sure to skirt the surface and steer clear, copy, paste, publish. Oh my gosh. And I think it's true. It's more of a curation, though, than an exclusive. It's more like a biopic than an exclusive. Not a biopic because it's, written, but... yeah, they're counting on people not reading it and being oh, headline. So we've got, all right, Combs is fighting with Wallace's attorneys. He wants to wrest back the rapper's publishing rights. I'll never give up until I'm dead and my bones are crushed into powder, Combs told the lawyers, according to the big payback. Biggie was absolutely about to leave Puff, Bun says. I know for a fact because he told me that. Another source adds, everybody wanted to leave Puffy, everybody leaves him. And now we get a quote from above, inserted down here further in the article. So Combs capitalizes on the shock and sorrow over Wallace's death. What else do we got? When Rolling Stone approached Bad Boy about a cover opportunity a few months after Biggie's murder, Burroughs claims he advocated for the late rapper to take the spot. I was telling Sean, let's make it Biggie. You still have a chance for a cover in the future, Burroughs recalls. He's like, no, he's dead. I'm putting out Combs' debut album, No Way Out, in July. I need to be on the cover of Rolling Stone. So, that actually maths. I can kind of picture that personally. And then he has the cover. If you guys want to see it, they link to it here. Is this... Alright. Thought they were going to paywall me, but it was this one. he said, make sure you can see my ink. pointing to Big right here. I'm going to take the cover that they wanted to do on Big, and I'm going to be on the cover with Big's name visible. B.I.G. That seems like that's believably exactly what I would imagine Diddy doing, if you ask me for my opinion. So, even death row's fearsome boss, who's currently serving a 28-year manslaughter sentence and has been labeled a boogeyman of hip-hop, said Combs' behavior was distasteful. When Pac left, I didn't pick up a microphone, Knight said on his prison podcast. I picked up the pieces. People did whatever he said to stay in his good graces. Okay, so are we going to get something relevant to the headline here? In the late 1990s, fans regularly gathered outside the Daddy's House studio. I die on the inside every time I have to say Daddy's House. In Midtown Manhattan, angling to see a famous face or pass along a mixtape. We had built this machine, the hottest hip-hop label in the world, and people started to jockey to get next to Puffy, Joyce says. As the new millennium dawned, hip-hop entered its bling era, with Combs and the bling. I'm thinking of, like, he showed up, his outfits, like the complete Swarovski crystalled suit to the Met Gala. As the new millennium dawned, hip-hop entered its bling era, with Combs and his artists mining the melodies of 1980s pop songs to guarantee commercial hits. Hey, that's something that they still do today. They wore matching shiny suits, spit raps about designer socks and yachts, draped themselves in diamonds, and filled their big-budget videos with fawning women and bombastic pyrotechnics. The label was thriving off Biggie's legacy and bolstered by rising stars Mace, Shine, and Black Rob. And we're back into, like, biopic land again. Combs wins Grammys. He's nominated for work outside artists Mariah Carey and R. Kelly. He entered the upper echelons of New York society, partying with Revlon billionaire Ron Perlman and Donald Trump. There was a certain narcissism, an attitude of objectifying not just women, but all people, and wanting to be with other men who enjoyed moving people around like chess pieces, Charnas says of Combs, adding that he was the standard bearer for a hip-hop as capitalism and a social mobility play. Becoming a dominant force in the industry only seemed to amplify Combs' bullying behavior. So finally we get a story, guys. In April 1999, Diddy barges into the office of Interscope Records executive Steve Stout and allegedly turned violent. Combs was furious that Stout didn't... Wait, this isn't news either, I don't think. Combs was furious that Stout didn't cut him from a crucifixion scene in a Nas music video before sending it to MTV. He punched me in the face, and then he grabbed the phone and bashed me in the head with it, Stout recounted to the LA Times. Combs privately settled with Stout, reportedly for $500,000, and dodged a 7-year prison sentence by pleading to a reduced charge of harassment. Now that's actually a good reminder, right? There was a criminal action here. He could have had some time. When you say dodge a 7-year prison sentence, that doesn't mean that that's what would have been given to him at sentencing. But probably up to 7 years was what he could have been facing. But he pled out for just harassment. That summer, Combs released his second album, Forever. The album's critical and commercial failure, it sold less than half of what its predecessor did. Hardly diminished Combs' star power. A few months later... Now is this... Hold on, wait, was this tried? So this was New York. Because it says here, the Manhattan South Police Precinct in New York City. So New York had a chance to get at him, and they gave him a plea deal. A few months later in December, Combs was arrested after a nightclub shooting in which 3 people were injured. Or wait, maybe this picture's from this incident then. His newest star, Shine, aka Jamal Michael Burrow, was convicted of firing shots, and this isn't news either. Combs, meanwhile, was charged with weapons possession and attempted bribery after he and then-girlfriend Jennifer Lopez fled the shooting in a Lincoln Navigator that reportedly ran 11 red lights. I'm most interested in seeing Homeland Security, if this grand jury comes forward. Is Jennifer Lopez one of the people that's going to speak? Because that would be interesting. Combs is facing up to 15 years in prison if convicted. Kevin Rogers Francis, a host at Combs' restaurant, Justin's, who did marketing work for Combs' short-lived magazine Notorious. Did he make a magazine? Was this after he died? I'm not familiar with that. When did that magazine start up? It could be anything with Diddy. Recalls the mogul scrambling for money, shuttering the magazine, and hitting the restaurant's drawers for cash in what Francis presumed was an effort to cover hefty legal bills. Now that seems kind of interesting. Hold on. So Kevin Rogers Francis is a host at this restaurant. He's just speaking to Rolling Stone. But speaking about this restaurant. So Combs has this restaurant. He does marketing work. This guy was doing marketing work. I wonder if this is like early laundering going on here. Has there been speculation about that? Back then, the prosecutor claims Combs offered cash to witnesses after some said Combs was the shooter. Victim Natanya Rubin has been adamant that, and this is all public too, she's spoken. She's been on YouTube. So Natanya Rubin has been adamant that Combs fired the bullet that tore through her nose. Combs' own driver testified that Combs offered him $50,000 using a $40,000 pinky ring as collateral. If he would say, he would offer a pinky ring for someone to be silent. If he would say he owned the unlicensed gun found in the SUV. Others have claimed Combs paid as much as $1 million to Barrow through an intermediary to buy his silence. Barrow denies the claim to Rolling Stone, calling it ridiculous misinformation. So we get a statement to Rolling Stone. After a 6-week trial, Combs was acquitted in March 2001. With his mounting scandals, a tabloid relationship with Lopez, and the popularity of his Sean John clothing line, which launched in '98, Combs entered the pop culture stratosphere. It became a point of pride to work for Bad Boy, says former employee Flash Rodriguez. It wasn't just a company, it was a lifestyle. But Combs was difficult to work for. This is like the 4th time we've gotten this difficult to work for. That's not news. Employees who wanted to stick around had to learn how to speak puffy, Brookshire and multiple sources say. A demanding boss, Combs often yelled to get his point across and fired employees on a whim. No one on his team at Bad Boy spoke back to him. Former Daddy's House studio manager Newsom says no one challenged him. Another source recalls Mace, whose real nickname is Nathan Betha. That I could be saying wrong. Betha? I don't want to call him a beta. Calling Combs massa behind his back. That's hilarious. He did not of course he's not going to speak to Rolling Stone. So they tried to ask Mace for a statement. Mace is like, no, not responding. But Mace still, he's speaking on different interviews, different shows, podcasts, whatever. But he's not speaking to Rolling Stone. He was so volatile, says a source who sometimes worked with Bad Boy. He's always on the edge of snapping and being scary. People did whatever he said to stay in his good graces, and Puffy exploited people's desires to be in those environments. So why is nobody saying anything? Are they that scared of him? After Combs' acquittal in the nightclub shooting in 2001, he reportedly headed straight to church. He later made a less God-fearing visit to the Peninsula Hotel, where he was throwing a massive bash to celebrate the verdict. It was there that Anna, a freelance graphic designer working for Bad Boy's marketing team, says Combs approached her and began to massage her shoulders. The woman requested a pseudonym, so this is someone speaking to Rolling Stone, citing fear of retribution. I'm getting touched on my shoulder, my arms, my back. He's like, oh yeah, you like that? I know you like that. Like, really, really gross. Anna recalls, sharing her story publicly for the first time. I was like, no, not so much. And I sort of floated my way out of there. Anna says she avoided Combs the rest of the night. Weeks later, her boss's girlfriend confided that Combs allegedly approached the boss the night of the party to solicit me for sex, Anna says. A friend confirmed to Rolling Stone that Anna told her about both the encounter and the proposed arrangement when they began working together a few years later. The boss did not return Rolling Stone's request for an interview, and the girlfriend declined to speak. I felt quite unsettled about this for many years. When people ask me about my days at Bad Boy, it's just overshadowed by his crap. Adding that, I hope she means like his showboating and like his celebrity, his parties, and not his crap like the other behavior and other allegations that are, not nice behavior to others. But, this is kind of lacking context here. Anna says, adding that Combs treated her as though she existed to accommodate his whims. Combs often flaunted his sexual encounters, even if underage artists were around to see. A teenage usher briefly lived at Combs' New York house in the early 90s, and this is like Usher has spoken on this before to Rolling Stone. So this is why it's like interesting for Rolling Stone to wait 6 months from these other accusations coming out to do some big expose. Like they had to wait until public sentiment turned. But they've had hints from interviews that they've themselves held and published. So teenage Usher briefly lived at Combs' New York house in the early 90s as a young bad boy protege. Puff introduced me to a totally different set of shit, sex specifically. Usher recalled telling Rolling Stone in 2004. There was always girls around. You'd open a door and see somebody doing it, or several people in the room having an orgy. You never knew what was going to happen. Casey Sheridan, a member of the teenage girl band Dream, recalls the group being summoned for a meeting with Combs to a Beverly Hills hotel bungalow when she was 15 and awkwardly eyeing a purse and a pair of high heels by the front door as the group waited. After 20 minutes, a bathrobed Combs emerged from a nearby room. It's like, you can't even keep our innocence. I'm 15, walking into the situation, knowing exactly what was going on next door, Sheridan says. And this isn't surprising if we see him run butt-ass naked out in the hallway to chase down a Cassie Ventura who was trying to leave. Like, he had the little towel on, but, you know, that, like, flops and flails open. All your stuff's underneath. And this is a photo from a Sean John show, but this is Crystal McKinney. We just read through her lawsuit 2 weeks ago. She's the one that she refers to the designer that she worked with was coordinating setting her up with Diddy and saying like, oh, you need to have extensions in your hair. And it was like some interesting stuff where it seemed like more than one person was at play trying to coordinate what she says happens. Feeding off his fame and power, Combs appeared to be pushing his most sickening impulses even further. Model Crystal McKinney was photographed during a star-studded Sean John fashion show in February of 2003. And now they're going to go through this lawsuit. She says she felt drugged, and it's put her into a tailspin ever since of anxiety and depression. He forced her to perform oral, according to her lawsuit, and she tried to unalive herself because of what had happened to her. And we get a statement from her. So this is to Rolling Stone. I had a whole future in modeling mapped out that was stolen from me. Being SA'd and having no recourse is so painful, McKinney tells Rolling Stone. I felt like I was dying every day because I did not yet have the strength to come forward. I hope that by speaking out, I can help other survivors come forward and seek justice. So we do have something that is somewhat exclusive to Rolling Stone. Again, not the story, because that was a public lawsuit, but a statement that was given directly to Rolling Stone by Cynthia McKinney. So we're up to like 4 things now, 5 things. Not after. And so the Kamoyo King says the Rolling Stone is questionable always. And that's why we're here. Because Cheyenne Roundtree, Nancy Dillon, it was Arbiko that said it earlier. It sure seems like this is someone doing a report using Wikipedia to go through the early life and personal life and the business, the career, and all of that. And then Barbara says the Notorious magazine apparently had 4 issues. Yeah, so not very successful, was it? And then, oh, okay. So Arbiko's saying that Mace is apparently a part of that 50 Cent produced doc on Diddy. I'm going to watch that. I'm excited for that. I like when I see 50 firing shots. Like, I really do. I don't always tune into internet beef, but if I see a 50 Cent post on X, I'm reading it. So I will definitely tune into this documentary, and I'll be very interested in seeing who's willing to speak on the document produced by him versus who an outlet or a journalist like Cheyenne Roundtree writing for the Rolling Stone, of these 300 people that they tried to get information and statements from. They didn't want to speak to them, but they'll speak to others. They'll speak to a YouTube video. It's very interesting to me. Very, very interesting to me. Yeah, and 50 doesn't give a fuck, and I love it. Yeah, same sentiment. And then Daisy says the thing is Diddy's cooked. Yep. He's a piece of shit, but Rolling Stone is so unserious, biased, and sloppy that I just can't take them seriously, especially the exposés they did on others. And that's really what's interesting, right? And I was really happy to see that. And this is a long article, so I don't know if we'll get to the social media reactions. But Rolling Stone has tried to publicize this expose and a shorter roundup they did, pulling from the bullet points that we're reading through now. And in the replies, everyone's like, wow, why'd you wait so long? You're just trying to capitalize now that everybody's turned on Diddy anyway. But where were you? Like, not just recently in the last 6 months when Cassie came forward or these other accusers, but where were you years and years ago when people were doing interviews with you and telling you about his behavior as it was happening? And the irony is, I'm going to highlight this so I don't get lost, but they're saying here, one of their headlines is, why is nobody saying anything? Are they that scared of him? Well, if this is it, the pot calling the kettle black, like, hello? You go on to cite someone telling you in an interview in 2004 stuff was weird. Why didn't you say anything then, Rolling Stone? I won't point fingers at Cheyenne Roundtree for that because I don't know her age, but that was 20 years ago. But Rolling Stone wasn't doing an expose back then when people were telling them. Why didn't they say something? Just questions I have. So, are we going back to biopic land or do we have more stories? So not long after, between the spring and fall of 2003, a 17-year-old girl was out one night with friends at a Detroit area lounge when a man in a suit approached and allegedly introduced himself as Combs' best friend. The man purportedly called Combs and let the girl speak directly with the famed producer, who was twice her age. The man, alleged to be former Bad Boy president Harvey Pierre, convinced the girl to board a private jet and take the 2-hour flight to Teterboro, New Jersey, just outside New York City, to meet Combs in person, according to a lawsuit filed last December by the girl, now an adult Jane Doe plaintiff. This witness, this is very interesting because this is a clear-cut, you're moving across state lines. I'm interested to see if this is a potential grand jury witness. I mean, I'm sure they'll have as many as they can, but, you know, if you have this idea of a 17-year-old being brought across state lines for the sake of potentially having sex with somebody, that seems like a federal prosecutor would want their hands on, like, some kind of statement or testimony from this witness. So then a high school junior, she was awestruck by the opportunity, documenting the trip with photos from inside Daddy's house. God, I hate saying that. And I think the pictures were included in that filing, right? That's the one where he has the girl sitting on the lap. Maybe they include it right here. So this is what we're talking about, is this lawsuit. If you're familiar with this picture, this is what Rolling Stone is referencing. So she's seen pretending to record a song, pointing at Combs' initials on the wall, and sitting on Combs' lap. So again, nothing new. This is in a lawsuit. The photos were included in the lawsuit to corroborate the woman's allegations that she was gang raped that night by Pierre, Combs, and a third unidentified man inside the recording studio. The woman claims that the men plied her with drugs and alcohol till she was nearly unconscious and unable to consent. As she started to black out, she claims, Combs led her to a bathroom where he removed her skirt and underwear and penetrated her from behind. As she drifted in and out, the unnamed assailant replaced Combs and raped her from behind as Combs watched, she says. So, freak-off activity. Then I'm not laughing at the experience. I'm laughing that people have been saying he's been into watching men do things. And that keeps coming up as a recurring theme in some of these lawsuits, and now CNN saying that the feds have some video footage of a male sex worker potentially being victimized in Diddy's residence more recently. So, when the men finished, she fell into a fetal position on the floor in excruciating pain and was later escorted out of the building and flown back to Michigan, she claims. So, Combs' lawyer filed a motion to dismiss, calling the account a decades-old, baseless claim in an effort to extract an undeserved financial recovery. Pierre did not reply to a request for comment, so Pierre does not want to speak to Rolling Stone, but previously called the accusation fiction and a desperate attempt for financial gain. Now, and I think, so Source or XXL was the source for that. And that's actually a good point, Fahim. Rolling Stone back then covered more music-related topics, but not so much the hip-hop rap news. So that's true. And then hey to Michael Sanchez. You're joining us late, but we haven't made it very far because this is a very long regurgitation from Rolling Stone on information that they're saying is some exclusive, but it's from lawsuits and things that have been covered ad nauseum, honestly, by other outlets and channels over the last 6 months. But we're apparently reading the product of their 6-month-long intensive investigation. So, we've got prescription painkillers, and then we're pulling from Ventura's lawsuit again. The painkillers, pills and other drugs out in the open like candy, ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, and marijuana during the freak-offs. Ventura says these other substances. This is all the lawsuit, from the lawsuit. Okay, a source says they once left a party at Combs' home because they felt so uncomfortable watching an aggressive Combs yell at Ventura throughout the night. You could tell in her eyes that she's scared, they said. I'm like, is this normal? Am I tripping right now? Why is nobody saying anything? Are they that scared of him? So this person is saying this to Rolling Stone now, wondering why no one's saying anything back then. In a 2015 appearance on The Breakfast Club, Combs describes the deal he offers his girlfriends. If I'm in a relationship, this is all, they're going back to the bloggers, the reporters, the creators, the shows. 25% of your time, you're going to just feel like, oh man, I hate being here. This guy cheated on me. He lied on me. While sitting next to his son. But there's a 75% where I'm going to make you the happiest woman in the whole wide world. I'm going to be there to support your dreams. I'm going to be there to hold you, to listen to you. I'm going to be there to be your best friend. And I promise you'll smile the most. You know who I am. This is what it is. Which deal would you choose? So, yeah, that maths. And again, it's not investigative work by Rolling Stone. It's something that he said on The Breakfast Club himself. There was one term of the deal Combs never disclosed, sources say. The women who signed up for it were not allowed to walk away. Damian Vasquez, a former Bad Boy intern, says after Combs and Lopez broke up, Combs had staffers camp outside MTV's TRL studios with signs to win her back. So, this isn't new. They link to a YouTube video here, which if I play, I'm sure it'll get copyright strict, but if you want to go watch this video of them holding up, go back to Diddy's signs. It's on YouTube. Ventura claimed that every time she hid, Combs' network of operatives found her and implored her to return, including a Bad Boy executive who threatened to withhold the release of her music if she didn't return Combs' calls. All from the lawsuit. Not from anything that the Rolling Stone had to dig up. They do say that after Ventura left Combs, he tried to paint a picture of a heartbroken, hurt man. A source who knew the couple throughout their relationship says, when the reality was, he's a liar and abuser. So, this person's saying that now. Burroughs believed Combs' losses at a young age, especially the murder of his father, took a toll on their relationship. He's fortified now with the money and the power, but abandonment and the act of leaving can bring about vicious results, he says, and the women catch it the worst. Well, that sounds like an excuse, Mr. Burroughs. And we're going to talk about Kim Porter, who is also not news. So, let's see. 2 sources. Their relationship was tumultuous, these 2 sources say. And they claim Combs physically abused Kim Porter. I remember Kim used to go through a lot of stuff. Former Bad Boy rapper Mark Curry says, if you live around them, you get to see the toxic relationship. I think every relationship he had that I experienced around him was like that. Combs and Porter first got together. All right. We're talking about the family, the affairs, things that aren't news, calling her 50 to 60 times a day. Now let's see. Do we have anything new here? Okay, so this might be new. You guys tell me, because I don't know all the details about Kim Porter and Diddy's relationship. In 2000, Porter's fledgling courtship with late music executive Shakir Stewart enraged Combs. When the industry gathered for L.A. Reid's wedding in Italy that summer, Combs went to Stewart's room after the ceremony and allegedly broke a chair over Stewart's head. Stewart's mother and 2 of his close friends tell Rolling Stone. He left him bleeding on a hotel floor in Italy, Stewart's mother Portia says. He had to have stitches, and then Combs threatened him, I'm going to kill you. That's when I said, you need to get out of this business. This man is crazy. So I think this quote is new. Is the story new? I'm not familiar with this story, but I don't Since nothing else in this article seems to be all that new, I feel like the story might be known, but Portia gave this new statement to Rolling Stone. The statement itself might be new. I've noticed him kill a lot of people's spirits. So we're going to go over all these artists. And then Machine Gun Kelly last released a track with Bad Boy in February of 2024, but started his own label under Interscope. Rolling Stone reached out to dozens of artists who'd been signed to Bad Boy to ask about their experiences with the label. Many declined, with one saying, "I don't have anything nice to say when it comes to my time with Bad Boy. It was not a good experience and not one I really want to relive." Fair enough. Those who did speak to Rolling Stone say they felt their time with the label was squandered through lack of direction. Several spent years at Bad Boy without releasing any music. Recurring theme. Curry, and again, notice that this isn't quotes, this is just a summary. Curry, who was affiliated with Bad Boy from 1997 to 2006, has been one of the most outspoken detractors, writing about his dealings with Combs in a 2009 book, Dancing with the Devil, How Puff Burned the Bad Boys of Hip Hop. He said Combs repeatedly promised to produce his solo album, but never gave him a budget. "There's different ways you can kill a person," Curry tells Rolling Stone. "I've noticed him kill a lot of people's spirits." Not everyone felt the same. Singer-songwriter Kalina Harper says one of the highs of her life was joining Combs' Diddy Dirty Money group in 2009. She was later invited to work with Combs on the Love album. "He was fucking cool as shit," she says, adding that artists who blame Combs for the trajectory of their careers may suffer from disgruntled employee syndrome. So we do have a quote that's positive for Diddy. Years ago, there were whispers that some Bad Boy A&R executive, but you know what? Hold on. This I am actually going to take some issue with, because they don't say when this statement was made. Now, if someone made this statement back, so 6 months ago would be what, December? So we can assume, at least the Cassie lawsuit may have been out at this point. But if we don't know when exactly, did singer-songwriter Kalina Harper make this statement after that CNN dropped that video? Because if you ask me, that's a little bit different than someone making this statement long before. Maybe one accuser came forward and Harper's just like, you know what, I don't know, maybe it's just disgruntled employee syndrome. But if someone made this statement yesterday, there's a lot more context that most people are well familiar with. Saying something like, "Oh, sounds like a disgruntled employee," to dismiss all of what we've seen, especially with a video being released, is really different. But we do not get the context from Rolling Stone on when they made this quote, the statement to them. And this is the exact reason people probably don't want to speak to Rolling Stone. And I'm not saying, she very well could have made this statement yesterday. And she could hold the same attitude right now, no matter what's publicly known. But if she made this statement after one lawsuit was filed and people were still weighing what was going on, and she didn't have personal knowledge herself, I would be inclined to give her some grace for saying, hey, their careers may suffer from disgruntled employee syndrome. I'd give a little grace there. But they don't tell us. Rolling Stone doesn't tell us when the statement was made. And I think that that's unfair. Years ago, there were whispers that some Bad Boy A&R executives would expect sexual favors from female artists in exchange for professional attention. I would hear about female artists being asked to do stuff with some of the other male executives, recalls one former Bad Boy staffer. Like, "We can make or break your career. What are you going to do about it? Going to HR was useless. If you want your job, you're not going there to complain," they add. And that's a fair point, guys. A lot of HR, parts of a company are meant to protect the company and not to protect the employee themselves. They're more so making sure that they handle employee grievances to make sure that there can't be other complaints that come forward for not listening to complaints or making sure retaliation doesn't happen. But HR isn't always there to be a resource for the humans that work at a company. It's usually there to protect the company from liabilities. So, fair point. On the Call Her Daddy podcast in 2022, this is the Aubrey O'Day thing. She said she was kicked out of the group because she wasn't willing to do certain things, not talent-wise, but in other areas. She refused to get specific, saying the truth was what you can imagine. There was no Me Too. She said, "You signed 1 million NDAs and 1 million contracts that took away your rights. Asked by Rolling Stone to elaborate, O'Day said, "The answer to what happens if you don't do what the executives want, I'm the full-blown fucking story of that." Some who left Combs worry that he might try to expel them from the industry altogether. Brooklyn rapper Lanice Babs Bunny Wiley of Combs' MTV reality show Making the Band said she was blackballed after leaving the label. Bun, the photographer, claims her gigs instantly dried up after winning a lawsuit against Combs in 2000 for withholding a set of Biggie photos from her. She claims a friend from the Fader magazine told her that Combs personally called the office and said if they worked with Bun, Bad Boy would pull its advertising from the magazine. Now we've heard this isn't the first person who's claimed this. We'll pull this from the magazine. We'll pull our advertising and our support for you if you pay attention to this person that we don't like. So, recurring theme here. Now, I'm not sure. Is this, she claims, is this claiming to Rolling Stone? I'm not exactly sure. Talk show host Wendy Williams wrote in her 2004 book that Combs spent a lot of money and used a lot of his influence to try to crush me after she posted an alleged sexual photo of Combs and another man on her website. Combs denies it was him in the photo. A music producer, Easy Moby, claimed in February that after he challenged Combs over a credit, Combs had given himself on the producer's song. He noted, "Certain people wouldn't deal with me. He's someone you don't want to make an enemy out of," says one former employee of Combs. When people do go against him, that person gets ostracized. So this seems like a quote to Rolling Stone that's echoing these things that Rolling Stone is pulling from other places. But we do get a statement that seems to be made to Rolling Stone directly here. For some, the effects of being shunned by Combs were profound. Francesca Spiro joined Bad Boy Entertainment in '98, rising through the company to become Combs' right-hand woman. But Spiro alleged in an age and disability discrimination lawsuit that Combs illegally fired her in 2010. She claimed Combs froze her out after she took time to recover from a hip surgery and voluntarily checked into rehab to treat a lapse in her sobriety. Spiro tried to continue working in the music industry, but opportunities would disappear, a family member says. So, this is coming from a family member, not Spiro. Yeah, so they're quoting Spiro from a lawsuit, but it seems like a family member's either speaking to Rolling Stone or they were mentioned in this lawsuit. The alleged blacklisting led to significant health issues, which brought her to her end, the relative says. She was devastated by the way she was treated. She felt betrayed. So Spiro died in 2014. As ex-Bad Boy President Burroughs puts it, Combs never forgets a grudge. If he sees a snag in the sweater, he'll pull it. Okay, so you guys are saying that the Easy Moby quote is old. And we do have a few statements here that are unique to Rolling Stone, and I still think the Howard belt thing is the new thing, which is probably why, this is a very long article, but it's probably why that was closer to the top. It wasn't at the very beginning, but they put their own story, what someone actually told them that was new, pretty close to the top, and everything new since just seems to be maybe a statement about something that's already been known. So, let's see, so Jarrell Morris is saying, "I heard that one of Diddy's Sean John male models, Esco, was allegedly killed by Diddy for dating Kim Porter in 2010. He also had his car blown up as well, like what happened to Cuddy. This info is in Kim Porter's tell-all book." So and this is the kind of thing I feel like, if there's going to be like a federal, like Homeland Security, federal grand jury indictment, these big incidents are the stuff that we'll see asked about and talked about in this type of thing. And I guarantee you, if these things happened, these people might be more willing to speak to, Homeland Security investigators that are actually bringing something serious forward with a group of people. I'm sure anyone being interviewed has the impression or understands that multiple people are finally speaking now, which can make it more empowering to actually share your story without total fear of retribution, right? So, especially public sentiment against Diddy has shifted. So I really think if we get this grand jury indictment, a lot of these things that are rumors, we'll find out the details. What happened? What evidence exists of this stuff? Because surely some of it happened. I'm not at a point where I'm questioning everything. I do question, I'm sure some people are going to come forward and say they have some bad story, they saw something 6 degrees removed, but they're saying it to get their moment of feeling like they're included in some type of big buzz topic. But I really think there's a lot of there with the accusations that have been levied against Diddy. And I really think this grand jury is going to lay it all out. They are taking their time to investigate and speak to people. So I think, Terrell Morris, I think we will see more of what you're talking about, at least with Cuddy and the car being blown up. Let alone if it happened twice, maybe to more than 2 people. I think we'll hear way more about it. And then Southern Belle says, HR is never there for their employees. Their job is to protect the company only. So, yeah. So, it's always good to try to cross your T's and dot your I's and stick up for yourself. But be careful sometimes, because sometimes people go to HR and complain about things, and next they're getting a performance improvement plan and they're getting shooed out the door without, benefits or severance because their performance sucked. Even though what really seems to have triggered it is they brought to attention something's not right here. So you always gotta be careful about yourself and not trust everything on its face to do what they say they're supposed to exist to do. And then let's see. Yeah, speaking of the YSL trial, yeah, this is like RICO. This is, coordination. And then, so Since I'm Here One says, I don't trust anything from Cheyenne Roundtree. Rolling Stone is just republishing old rumors. And if you just joined, Arbiko pointed out that it seems like someone went through like a Wikipedia story and it's just like rewriting it. Let's see. It was a crowning moment for, wait, did I miss something? We've got, and hold on, I have something at 2. Let me push it back. I'm going to send a text. Able to join. Let's see. The life ain't always what it seemed to be. For Combs' 50th birthday party in 2019, we've got big home, black tie attire, beaded gowns. Ciroc, of course, was the drink of choice. They admired the breathtaking Kerry James Marshall painting that Combs had recently purchased for $21 million. I know, I'm just gonna say, art is a big way to boast, but it's also a way to launder money. Guests Beyonce and Jay-Z rubbed shoulders with Dr. Dre, Leonardo DiCaprio, Kobe Bryant, Cardi B, Snoop Dogg, Kim Kardashian, Usher, and Post Malone. It was a crowning moment for Combs, a testament to the multifaceted success he'd worked so hard to achieve. Combs had conquered fashion, winning Menswear Designer of the Year at the prestigious Council of Fashion Designers Award in 2004, acted on Broadway, became the co-owner of DeLeon Tequila, founded the Revolt TV cable network, which he's no longer part of. They've made statements denouncing him. They're like, that video came out and we feel compelled to make a statement, even though we've already cut ties with him a while ago. We still want to make a statement denouncing his behavior. Purchased the sports beverage company Aqua Hydrate with Mark Wahlberg, and filmed a cameo in Disney's 2014 movie, Muppets Most Wanted. That's hilarious. That's ironic. He even legally changed his middle name to Love. With his hard edges seemingly polished away by his gilded life, Combs appeared untouchable. It was all the perfect cover for his alleged physical and sexual abuse of Ventura. Ventura says there were multiple witnesses. So is this the lawsuit again? She claims that the head of security began to cry when they saw the extent of her injuries. In an open letter published by Rolling Stone, Ventura's friend Tiffany Red wrote that she was present the night Ventura says she was forced to leave her 2015 surprise party for another freak-off with Combs. So Red, she's gone on and spoken about this with Tisha Tells, and a few others. So that's not really... It was an important letter. A lot was said in it, and it gives a good picture of, imagine being forced to leave your surprise birthday party to go have a drug-filled freak-off. So Diddy can watch you with your white fingernails on a dark-skinned male sex worker's genitals. Like, that must be the 25% that Combs told the Breakfast Club is the horrible stuff you'll have to put up with if you want the other 75%. That's how he characterized it himself. But Tiffany Red has advocated for Cassie and spoken on what this dynamic was like. Again, it's not anything that is new news because of Rolling Stone. So Ventura returns later that night, apparently sedated, while Combs screamed at Tiffany Red, "Tell your girl she wants some birthday dick. I flew all the way from Miami. She gonna get this birthday dick." Red wrote that she told a visible angry Combs to leave Ventura alone. She recalled Combs ignoring her and driving off with Ventura in a golf cart. Combs' physical abuse extended to Ventura's inner circle as well. According to her lawsuit, she claims one of her friends, so this was mentioned in the lawsuit, this is the hanger story, in 2018. After Ventura's birthday party in 2015, a severely intoxicated Combs allegedly dangled another one of Ventura's friends over a 17th floor balcony. Neither friend wants to speak to Rolling Stone about it. One source who worked with Combs and Ventura says people fail to speak up because Combs doesn't believe in being told no, and if you get caught up in the wrath of that, it can be very dangerous. So, going back to the lawsuit, Cassie finds the strength to leave. She claims Combs pulled off her clothing and assaulted her. She repeatedly said no, talking about in 2018. And then a month later, People magazine reports that the relationship was over, citing a source who said Ventura was moving on with renewed focus on her career. And yeah, so the birthday dick made Barbara laugh out loud. Though Ventura's alleged hell at the hands of Combs was largely unknown until she filed her complaint, overlapping public claims about Combs' behavior made minor headlines during their decade together. So in 2017, Combs was sued for sexual harassment by Cindy Ruda. And I've been thinking about going back and looking at that lawsuit because Cindy Ruda says that, hey, I complained, and in retaliation, Diddy and a housekeeper worked to frame me and said I was trying to steal an expensive watch. That was part of the claim, and I believe he settled out. So, yeah, she claimed that when she worked for Combs in 2015 and part of 2016, he regularly had her serve dishes while he and his guests were engaged in sexual activity. Ruda claimed Combs once asked her to prepare a post-coital meal, then greeted her fully naked and asked if she liked his naked body. One incident in August 2015 allegedly involved Combs ordering Ruda to serve him breakfast in his room and then partaking in sexual activity with model Gina Hun, as Ruda dropped the food on a table and fled. The lawsuit was forced into arbitration and ended privately. A lawyer, because as an employee, she probably signed, like a non-disparagement, some type of agreement that if there's any issue, we have to go to arbitration. You'll see that same thing with the Janelle Grant and the Vince McMahon suit, where that's likely going to be forced into arbitration because those clauses seem rock solid. And Janelle really should have taken it to arbitration first, and she might get a slap on the wrist for trying to file a civil suit publicly instead of following the clauses to take it to arbitration. So, interesting legal thing there, but that's why Ruda's case ends up, kind of getting settled or ended behind closed doors. It's because there was an arbitration agreement, likely because she was a contractual employee, because she was a chef hired. So, and then I'm going to butcher her name. So Gina Hun, meanwhile, reemerged in 2019 with claims that Combs beat her. In an interview with gossip blogger Tasha K., Hun said she started dating Combs in 2014 and that he offered her $50,000 to terminate a pregnancy that year. This man's always offering 50 bands. That's his number. That's his hush number. And this is 2019. Oh, well, we don't know when this was because this is sometime after 2014. But I was going to say, does inflation come into these? Oh, here's my hush money. Don't say something. It's always 50,000. So Hun also said Combs shoved her to the ground and dragged her by her hair in 2018, and in a jealous rage, once stomped on her stomach. The allegations barely made a ripple, and Hun went silent after the interview. Hun declined to comment for this article. Now, that might be true, but I would say Tasha K does have a pretty big audience and a pretty big following, so I wouldn't really call that not... It's not like that's under the radar if you're speaking on Tasha K's platform. I don't have an opinion of Tasha K. I know she's been sued successfully for defamation. But again, this is someone else going on the show and speaking for themselves in front of a large audience that Tasha K factually, objectively has. So I don't know if this is just the Rolling Stones saying, oh, Hunt isn't speaking to anyone, and she's not speaking for us, to downplay that it's yet another person that doesn't want to comment to Rolling Stone specifically. The Detroit area Jane Doe, who sued Combs and Pierre in December, tells Rolling Stone she hopes her lawsuit will hold not just Combs, but also all of those who acted with him, stood silent, and actively covered up his behavior accountable. In her lawsuit, she said her nightmare was not an isolated incident and pointed to another Jane Doe who sued Pierre on November 21st. So that woman's alleging that Pierre groomed and sexually assaulted her when she was his assistant between 2016 and 2017. Then in early February, Jones, the Love album producer, sued. So I think that's one of the lawsuits that's gotten the second biggest buzz after Cassie's. That's Lil Rod. That's Lil Rod's lawsuit filed by Tyrone Blackburn, which included unusual elements such as photos of the defendants and redacted names that could easily be deciphered. Claimed that Jones worked, traveled, and often lived with Combs while producing 9 songs for the project. Jones described his experience as a hedonistic hellscape. He claims to have hundreds of hours of footage and audio capturing Combs, his staff, and his guests engaged in serious illegal activity, including the use and distribution of ecstasy, cocaine, ketamine, marijuana candy, mushrooms, GHB, and Tushi, maybe Tukey, a pink powder described as a mixture of ecstasy and cocaine. He claimed that at one party in July 2023, and this is not new news if you've paid attention to any coverage of the Little Rod suit, Combs fed him ecstasy-laced liquor until he blacked out and woke up naked next to a sex worker. Now, I'm wondering if this is like something we have the video footage for. Because this is absolutely something that, the federal investigation will be looking at. Jones said Combs terrorized him with constant, unsolicited, and unauthorized groping and touching of his anus, and that Combs kept him compliant by displaying weapons, threatening to eat his face, and, according to the suit, informing Jones that he was willing to kill his own mother if he must to get what he wanted. Combs' lawyer called the complaint pure fiction. So, now we have a statement from Lil Rod to Rolling Stone before the lawsuit was filed. He is this monster, nothing has changed. This guy got no soul, he has no duty to anyone, not even his kids. But no comment since? Combs' associates, meanwhile, have faced allegations of their own. 25-year-old Brendan Paul, who Jones described in his lawsuit as Combs' drug mule, was arrested and charged, and he's pled out. So he's pleading not guilty, accepted a deal in May. All not new news. The substance amount allegedly found was not part of a trafficking level. In early April, yacht steward Grace O'Marcy sued Combs and his 26-year-old son Christian, alleging that Christian drugged and attacked her on board a luxury vessel rented for a 2022 vacation in San Martin while filming a since-scrapped family reality show for Hulu. So Hulu probably dropped that so quickly. According to NBC News, we're going to say OM, can be heard in an audio recording asking Christian to stop touching her legs. She claims Christian later tried to force her to perform oral sex, allegations he denies through his father's lawyer. Christian Combs' lawyer, Aaron Dyer, did not... This man has so many lawyers. This is the third attorney name I think we've heard in this article. Did not reply to a request for comment to the Rolling Stone, but previously claimed, to others, that OM's complaint was rife with manufactured lies and irrelevant facts. All these people are happy to speak, but not to Rolling Stone. So is this the end? So... on May 4th, Combs posted a video of himself standing by an ocean, staring down at, what is this, Instagram or something? Yeah, so they're citing an Instagram post. Arms outstretched as the recorded voice of his spiritual advisor says, not hysterical, not frantic, not anxious, not fretful, but steady in the storm. So this was before his apology video. And before the release of the elevator footage, the hotel footage. While Combs gathers support where he can, the new allegations have reshaped his world. Just stepping down from Revolt, he sold his shares in March. He's getting cut and tied from the Harlem Charter School that he co-founded. All of this stuff. Premium liquor giant is saying, hey, we want to buy your share out so you can get up out of here. We're dissolving our partnership. And then the wave of lawsuits is reigniting industry beef with Combs' long-term rival 50 Cent, who's making a documentary about his downfall. So, very interested in this. Combs is preparing for a fight for his reputation, his legacy, and in some sense, his life. Federal officials declined to say much after the March raids, but a source confirmed to Rolling Stone that investigators in the Southern District of New York interviewed potential witnesses as part of a sex trafficking and racketeering probe. So that's what we heard some of that from CNN. Agents may also examine Combs' alleged ties to the infamous Black Mafia family cartel after the Detroit Jane Doe alleged in her suit that the group is rumored to have seeded Bad Boy. No criminal charges have been announced as of publication. So, all of this, they're going into what this type of trafficking and the racketeering could be charged on its own. And this is just someone who prosecuted R. Kelly speaking to Rolling Stone. It's not a fact witness. It's not someone who's experienced something with Diddy directly. But they're willing to speak to Rolling Stone. And then what else do we got? Anything new? And then baby mom, I always say Misa Hilton, the mother of Combs' first son Justin, had been silent in the wake of Ventura's lawsuit, but after the video broke, she responded by saying, and she responded not to Rolling Stone, but elsewhere, "I know exactly how she feels, and through my empathy, it has triggered my own trauma." She does not want to comment to Rolling Stone. So, it's a long overdue reckoning, says Anna, which was a pseudonym. People have been sitting with their experiences for years because you don't know what to do with it. Gardner's friend wrote in her recent affidavit that she wishes she'd spoken up then and raised hell earlier. She watched her friend grapple with the aftermath. This experience completely changed Liza as a person, she wrote. Dickerson Neal, too, said she was forever changed by a single night. One date with Sean Combs led to the trauma and pain of sexual assault and an ocean's depth of shame, she tells Rolling Stone. Learning that Combs allegedly distributed an explicit video of her was devastating, and she's suffering debilitating self-doubt and a lifetime of inner turmoil. Those who were watching decades ago have long suspected Combs' legacy would end in disgrace. None of this was a surprise for me, says one of the Howard alumni who had knowledge of Combs' attack on a classmate. So one of those three that we heard from earlier with the belt incident. You're already an abuser in college. You were already feeling you had to have a certain power over people. Another says Combs must now face accountability. It's time. And then they're going to cite, they're ending it with Cassie's apology. I didn't mean to say apology. Her statement expressing gratitude for the love and support. With a lot of hard work, I'm better today, she wrote, but added, echoing the experience of my many Combs accusers, I will always be recovering from my past. So they ended this article in reference to Cassie's Instagram post. Now, so that was a lot. That was a lot. On a scale, let's just say like 1 to 10, guys. 1 is 10%, 2 is 20%. How much of this article do you think was worthy of being called an exclusive? Because I'm going to put like 12% personally, if you ask me. And then E. Capone's in the chat, my fellow justice junkie. Thank you for your super chat. And it's good to see you. The short, we read this huge Rolling Stone article. To me, I wanted to be critical and see if they had anything that was actually an exclusive. They said they spent 6 months investigating and tried to speak to over 300 people that would have knowledge of Diddy's behavior throughout the decades. And no one wanted to speak with them. And the whole exclusive seems, besides a few statements about other things, to be a rehashing of things that are covered extensively by other outlets and other commentators. So it was just really interesting to see that Rolling Stone waited so long to say something, and then they wrote a whole article saying, why did people wait to say something? So it's good to see you here. I'm sure if you were here at the beginning, you would have had a lot of great commentary, but I'm glad to see you join anyway. Eliza says 0%. 0%. Juanita's giving 5%. Pam is giving 2%. Guys, I was generous. I gave 12. I gave 12%. Oh my goodness. And then Eliza says Rolling Stone is the gossipy, annoying person in the group. Yeah. And then do you guys want to see, let me pull up what was going on Twitter. I'll switch the screen over to that. We can go look at what social media thinks of Rolling Stone's exclusive. Let's see. So I had liked some of the comments so I could go and find them easily. Let me make sure I get this. The screen's all wonky. Make this bigger. 6 months for this trash, negative 1%. Shrink that. Now, does this give us comments? So this is their thread. They're like promoting their articles, and then their mini short highlight article. No, we can't see the comments this way. But let's see what the internet thinks of Rolling Stone. Brock says, look, this went on for decades. The fact that it's coming out now shows how corrupt the media and entertainment industry truly are. It's going on in other places too. So they're not taking a direct attack on Rolling Stone. They're just pointing out validly that the industry let it go on. Well, duh. So Maley says, well, duh, it took you 6 months to figure it out. So they're attacking how long they're claiming this investigation took, right? You would think a 6-month investigation, you should have some new information, something really compelling, a deep dive. And what do we have? We have something that's warranting a negative 1% from Fahim. Barbara says there's not enough burn cream on the planet to cover the roasting. Rolling Stone has become a ridiculously overpriced corporate rag. They are way late with the story and desperate having people to pay to read it. I'm sure it offers no new insights into this guy. By the way, I'm getting around it on, like, you know, the private browser or whatever, but oh my gosh, there's ads galore, and people that paid for they subscribed to Rolling Stone, they said that even though they're in it and pay for it, it kept refreshing with new ads, like every paragraph that they were trying to read. So, you know, there's that. And then I'm shocked. That's not interesting. This article seems incredibly outdated. There's no insights or information, just quotes from YouTube interviews and the same headlines from the last few months. Quoting Tasha K's interviews, it appears this man is still very protected, as clearly no one spoke to you for this. For this article, so cut off one word. And then let's see. I don't believe y'all been on this story for 6 months. This is a weird time to post. Let's see. And Mace was saying this for decades. So, was it Arbico that said Mace is speaking on the 50 Cent documentary about Diddy? So, and Mace has been speaking on, like, podcasts and stuff. But also, I'm very interested to see. I've said it already. I'm interested in seeing the 50 Cent documentary in general. But I'm also interested in watching it to compare it to how many people may speak for the purpose of that documentary versus how many people did not want to speak to Rolling Stone. Gonna be like clocking it back and forth. What else do we have? What took y'all 6 months, we've heard our whole lives, and we're just random people. Imagine what the industry saw and was scared to speak on. I couldn't be bothered to read anything from this garbage publication. Oh, that's actually true. The only tell from this expose is that the powers that be are ready to discard of Diddy at this point. He's of no use to them anymore with this much bad publicity. Rolling Stone was in bed with Diddy. What about Jay-Z? Will you say something, or is there conflict of interest? Let's see what else. Do a 6-month investigation on all the white predators in the music industry. Start with Nickelodeon. Did Rolling Stone not cover, not just Dan Schneider, but some of the stuff with Bell, and did Rolling Stone not get in on that? That's actually shocking to me, because that seems like, clickbait worthy, something that I would expect them to cover. But Big Mama's house is calling out that, hey, you didn't do a 6-month investigation there. But you know who they spent time investigating? And I've been waiting to say it. I didn't want to make this video about Jonathan Majors. But Rolling Stone spent months and months and months investigating Jonathan Majors. And they ran a headline saying they had 40 accusers with prior statements about his abuse. And then you get into the meat of the article and what's really in there. I'm going to go to Fahim's negative 1%. That's how I felt about the Jonathan Majors article. Just like crazy. Like, just nothing. It was all just anonymous sources someone familiar with someone familiar with someone familiar. And it was Cheyenne Roundtree. It was the same journalist. Same thing. And then G Money here says, how can you call this article non-biased when half the people you interviewed have been fired by him or are trying to sue him? What kind of journalism is that? And I'm just going to add one layer here. You know, a lot of the things, half the people you interviewed, I think G Money is overemphasizing how this expose was really shaped. A lot of the people we see statements from in this interview, the statements are being derived from the lawsuits that they filed, not necessarily from an interview, a direct interview with Rolling Stone and these individuals. So that's a whole nother layer. Yeah, we're waiting for 50 Cent to drop his shit off so all others can wait. Let's see. Damn, y'all late. Yeah, no shit. Gosh, they're all like, a lot of people are like, investigate Drake, so some stuff that's like not really relevant to the purpose of this video. People knew for decades and they said nothing. One person says this was a very comprehensive write-up on Diddy. It was comprehensive, I will give it that. But now do David Geffen and his penchant for young teen male models and young teen male boy band members. He's one of the most hated people in the industry for how coldly he treated others. So, I will, it was comprehensive. I wouldn't call it exclusive information, though. That's my contention. Let's see. I'm sorry, but we've only been hearing about Puffy for at least 25 years, and Rolling Stone is only now doing an expose after the lawsuits hit. As far as I'm concerned, Rolling Stone and other outlets has been complicit in covering for him. So, I mean, it's going to go through a lot of the same thing being echoed back and forth, but so I don't need to like beat you over the head with it. But, you know, people notice that Rolling Stone is pretty selective in their reporting, and they package the things that they do up as these big exclusive deep dive journalism, blah, 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 blah. And on one hand, it's the bulk of the information's in the headline. And then on the other hand, what they're packaging as some type of exclusive, they're either biting off of other people's stories or other people's coverage, or they're not really getting into it at all. It'll just say like a generalization. There was one line I highlighted while we were reading that where they said 3 people said something, but they gave like a 1-sentence summary. Is that really coverage? To say we spoke with these people, here's 3 people we spoke to about an issue, and then instead of any specific quotes, you're just writing a 1-sentence summary of their sentiment. Like, that's not really... I don't know. So I have a ton of respect for... And I don't even want to just say the outlets and other journalists that have been covering this type of thing. But I have a lot of respect for even the commentators that have, you know, they don't pitch themselves as being a journalist. They're not trying to do deep dive reporting or investigations. But they're commenting, they're bringing together stories, they're talking about it, they're bringing information to the forefront nonetheless because they're commenting on them. And all of that stuff that we went through in this long article has been widely discussed by other people in other spaces, in chat rooms, in threads on X, on blogs. Like, I don't know how this was labeled an exclusive. I really, really don't. And then Random Girl, good to see you in here. You're saying Bay's just as guilty. So I think when I read the comment that mentioned, okay, now do Jay-Z. So, anyway, we're talking about people with a lot of money and a lot of power. A lot of money and a lot of power. And there was that picture going viral. It was, I think, was Kim and Kanye was part of it. Bey and Jay-Z. It was like 5 power couples that were part of it. And it was going viral recently, like, well, they all knew, and I think someone mentioned, like, you could see on Kim's face that she got up out of there or something like that. I don't know. There was a lot of talk about some picture with 5 power couples relating to couples that hang around Diddy. So that's something worth looking at. I'm sure we'll see no end of speculation there on other moving parts and pieces that could have known this stuff was going on for 2-3 decades. And then, yeah, Erica, that's a good way to put it. Comprehensive, but not informative. And then, yeah, so random girl, I don't know when you joined, but Rolling Stone did mention, and then Barbara ended up looking it up, that Diddy tried to have Notorious magazine and ended up only having 4 issues. So if that was something that came out after his death and Diddy was using it to try to capitalize on it, people shared the same sentiment as you. They were not with it. They were not buying that magazine because they were probably thinking, why are you capitalizing off of this? That's weird. It's corny. And then Daisy says, how do we know they didn't feed AI all they know public info about Diddy and added their quotes in flowery language? They're lazy. Yeah, that new ChatGPT 4 is out, guys. 4.0. You know, it writes a little bit less obviously like a ChatGPT. You know, ChatGPT 3.5, it wants to put emojis everywhere as bullet points. It loves the word delve. So guys, when I see delve anywhere, I'm like, they had ChatGPT write this for them. And then they love to use like comma separated sentences. So like, turtles like walking in the sun, comma, therefore they always write these 2-part sentences, ChatGPT does, the old version. The new version's a lot more passable with variation and tone of voice without you having to instruct and prune it down to something more candid and authentic sounding. But yeah, how do we know that these journalists aren't just 6-month investigation and writing a novel, but all they're doing is copying and pasting a bunch of segments and having AI pump something out? And that's why I think like people, like one of my favorite things about YouTube is the chat room. I'm obviously the one like on the video reading this stuff today, but I like being in the chat room because that's where you get the space to see everything that you guys are saying here, all your thoughts, your insights, being able to piece together, how long has this been going on? When did he start going by Puff? When did you guys hear this story? And, you know, you can gauge a sentiment from real people, and a lot of journalism, when you go to Google, you'll get some AI generated thing that loses all of that. So like AI, I don't think is a great thing for journalism. I really don't, but it's certainly being used, and it's possible that outlets like Rolling Stone are using it. And then, yeah, copy and paste. And I really think like everything I know about I didn't follow like the entertainment world growing up. I was big into radio. So a lot of the time I would hear songs and I would know the songs, but I might not even know the artist or the album or like the story behind it, because when you listen to the radio, if you don't catch that moment when they say, you know, the little intro about who's coming on, you don't get to hear much. You just hear the music, then the commercials. So a lot of stuff, I didn't have the story, the evolution of Diddy's story in the music industry. I didn't have much context there to go by. But I've learned so much because of, you know, actual culture commentators, journalists, YouTube creators, you guys in the chat, seeing what you guys post, not just in YouTube comments, but also over on X. Like, you guys, like, people are a wealth of information out here. And you've got all these outlets just doing lazy work to either regurgitate it and water it down to something that's AI aided. And I really hate that. And then, so I had something I pushed back. I was supposed to be on at 2:04, so I'm going to jump off. I think it's possible we'll have another story, so maybe I can drop a link then and have people come on live and share their thoughts. I would not be surprised if we have a new Diddy update in like 4 days. So maybe next time we have that, we'll do a live. That way you guys, anyone that wants to guest and come up and share their thoughts on screen, call it in. You guys can join up on StreamYard. I do have to go because I'm 27 minutes late to a commitment I had for a work client, an actual day job thing. But this was way more exciting to talk about because I really like looking at journalism like Rolling Stone, whatever you want to call it, social media reactions. You know, everybody that was reacting to Rolling Stone seems to have this idea of like, hey, we believe the general sentiment here. We know his reputation's ruined. We know Diddy's probably done some stuff. Nobody's in the comments really fighting that. But there's a lot of people in the comments rolling their eyes at Rolling Stone. And personally, I love to see it. I just love to see it. So I'm glad you guys all joined here to talk about it with me. I want to say thank you. You guys had so many conversations going in the chat, so sorry if I didn't get to read through everything, all the comments as usual. I usually try to, but sometimes it's too much. But thanks so much for joining. You guys all take care until next time, and whenever